Chapter 881, Mimicking. The White Fox Clan man who spoke immediately attracted the attention of many. This was because he was especially unique. He was tall and burly, and there was a heavy weapon on his back. From the shape of it, it resembled a heavy sword. The man's face was chiseled and his eyes were like two sharp blades. He had a faint scar in between his eyebrows, which looked like ivory. Standing there, he emanated an overwhelming foul bloodthirsty aura. This foul aura would only appear on people who had their hands stained with a great deal of blood. Clearly, this man had experienced several life and death battles, and he had traversed the realms of both life and death. How was such a man in the White Fox Clan? Ignoring his foul bloodthirsty aura, just his appearance alone definitely made him an extremely masculine man, even in the Luo clan. He was completely different from the effeminate men in the White Fox Clan. The White Fox Clan had such a person? I am. Yi Yun stood at the exit of the Luo clan's spirit cruiser. He had yet to disembark from the spirit cruiser, and when he locked eyes with the sword-bearing man, Yi Yun felt that the other person's aura was extraordinary. The sword-bearing youth was somewhat special. The Shadow Twins, together with the sword-bearing youth, allowed the White Fox Clan to showcase their strength even before the trials began. It was already quite amazing. My name is Wu Feng. The sword-bearing man announced his name as he looked deeply into Yi Yun's eyes. Yi Yun was not surprised to be suddenly questioned by members of the White Fox Clan. It was highly likely that most people in the White Fox Clan had heard of his name. The reason was none other than the confrontation between Luo Hor and Baiyu Qing. Yi Yun slightly cocked his head and looked at Princess White Fox. In the White Fox Clan, Princess White Fox enjoyed a lofty status, a status not inferior to Luo Huier. He's Yi Yun? Wu Feng's reaction was rather plain, but for the other disciples of the White Fox Clan, they did not remain calm when they heard Yi Yun's name. So he is the one who declared that our White Fox Clan's Princess White Fox was not worthy to be his travel partner? His cultivation level is at the beginning stages of the Heaven Ascension realm. His foundation is passable, but his physique is extremely weak. He would have been annihilated by me if he was in the White Fox Clan for daring to speak so arrogantly. Do you think that he truly doesn't want to partner with our princess in her travels? He probably yearns for it deeply, but knows that it's impossible, so he put on an arrogant front. However, to be able to act arrogant, one has to have the appropriate strength and status. He doesn't have any of that. A few of the male White Fox Clan youths discussed in whispers as they sized up Yi Yun without any reservations. Their perceptions blanketed Yi Yun as they checked his foundation and lifeblood strength. They had heard of the matters over the past few days, and they were incensed over the matter. They wanted to know what the arrogant man looked like. Although the discussion were as quiet as murmurs, their conversation could be heard by others. Princess White Fox frowned slightly and turned around. She glanced at those youths that were speaking, a displeased look on her face. The Luo Divine Hall trials have just begun. Our every action and word represent the White Fox Clan. By being verbally provocative before the trials, it does nothing but make others think lowly of us. Princess White Fox sent a voice transmission. The few White Fox youths choked up, and they did not dare to refute her. Your Highness, your teachings are sensible. Words mean nothing. When the trials begin, we will let that arrogant fellow know the strength of our White Fox Clan. They knew about the bet about the trials between Luo Hor and Baiyu Qing. Baiyu Qing had also specially informed them of the importance of the trials. Other than the bet, if they were able to crush the Luo clan in the trials, they would also gain the upper hand in the upcoming forging of the alliance between the Luo clan and the White Fox Clan. Without a doubt, those who managed to obtain good results at the trial would make a name of themselves. Yi Yun, aren't you coming down? At this moment, Wu Feng said to Yi Yun. In the land mass where the Luo Divine Hall was, the laws in the void were chaotic, making it difficult for the youths to fly. Previously, the Shadow Twins had worked together to stride down the void and calming the laws. It was truly fascinating. Wu Feng understood of Yi Yun's feats. He was very curious about a person who could use the 72 introductory moves to refine an outstanding relic. Instantly, many people were looking at Yi Yun. Although many of the White Fox clan disciples frowned upon Yi Yun, it was still very easy to fly in the primordial Empyrean heaven. Those with strong nomological insights would be able to find the gist of it instantly, allowing them to stabilize their footing. Those with weaker laws would stagger from beginning to end, almost never finding balance. They wanted to see how long Yi Yun would take to find his balance. Yi Yun looked at the void outside the spirit cruiser. Musing slightly, he took his first step out. When his center of gravity shifted out of the spirit cruiser, Yi Yun immediately saw the chaotic laws that belonged to the primordial Empyrean heaven. The space here were filled with a variety of primordial energy. Unformed energies of yin-yang, the 5 elements, creation, spatial temporal. These energies surged into his body as they wantonly burst through his meridians. If his nomological insight was insufficient, the myriad of energies that mixed into his bodies would result in him plummeting if he failed to control them, just like the other Luo clan disciples from before. Yi Yun's pace was not fast. He took one step after another. In the purple crystal's energy vision, the chaotic energy looked like countless disordered threads. Yi Yun stepped on the nexus points of these threads like he was walking a tightrope. It looked rather interesting to Yi Yun. Walking stably was not difficult in fact, but with his energy vision, Yi Yun had several thoughts. Oh? What is that Yi Yun doing? People noticed that Yi Yun was walking very slowly in the void. Every step was taken very cautiously. His eyes were staring at his feet, as though he was walking along a cliff's edge, worried that he would fall at any time. This strolling that looked like a snail's crawl could not be considered as elegant. Compared to Wu Feng, Luo Mo and company, he was far inferior. They were able to find their balance in less than a second. Why is Yi Yun so slow at trying to adapt himself to the primordial Empyrean heaven's chaotic laws and maintain his balance? A youth from the White Fox clan chuckled. Just as he was about to deride Yi Yun, he was suddenly stunned. He noticed that there were faint ripples beneath Yi Yun's feet, just like the ripples the Shadow Twins had formed. However, the ripples that Yi Yun created were much fainter. It looked like he had yet to proficiently grasp it, but even so, this astounded the youth that was about to speak. He's mimicking the Shadow Twins. The youth from the White Fox clan said as his voice broke. He never expected that Yi Yun was able to mimic the Shadow Twins in his first step into the primordial Empyrean heaven. It was quelling the chaotic and violent energies just by using their legs. Furthermore, he actually managed to do it. Although he did not do it in as collected a manner as the Shadow Twins, people knew that this was not the first time that the Shadow Twins had stepped into the primordial Empyrean heaven. They had been here before. Beside Princess White Fox, the Shadow Twins were watching Yi Yun. A look of astonishment flashed on their identical faces as they said, "Princess, that Yi Yun truly has impressive perception." Chapter 882, Ancient Fey Soul Remnant. The Shadow Twins had always been outstanding in the White Fox clan. As twin sisters, they had simultaneously awoken their ancient nine-tailed fox bloodline. Coupled with their pedigree and beauty, they were obviously highly sought after. Hence, under the present situation, those who could be praised by them were few and far between. However, what Yi Yun had done had truly astonished them. The primordial universe's chaotic laws were like churning waves in the sea. The sea waves easily changed their shape, but if one wanted to attempt to use their feet to flatten the waves, that was nearly impossible. Although Yi Yun's mimicry was relatively inchoate compared to the Shadow Twins, it was still extremely rare and valuable. Furthermore, the more Yi Yun walked, the more plain sailing it became for him. He was also slowly speeding up. The White Fox clan geniuses that had previously mocked Yi Yun were momentarily at a loss for words when they saw the situation. They might have extremely strong combat ability, but they themselves knew that they could not use their feet to flatten the chaotic energies. At this moment, Wu Feng spoke, "Do not look down on the geniuses of the Luo clan. Although you are the cream of the crop in the White Fox clan, and this batch of juniors in the White Fox clan far exceeds the past, the Luo clan is also filled with talent. Don't forget that the Luo clan has existed for an even longer period of time. They have amassed a great foundation. When the surrounding White Fox clan geniuses heard this, some of them fell silent while others were unconvinced. Being able to flatten the chaotic energies in the void is based on one's superiority in laws. Yi Yun is a human, so it is normal for him to be better than us on this. I heard that at a Luo clan collective training, his nomological insights were outstanding. However, what will be compared next is actual combat. Actual combat is what we are best at. Right. Actual combat is everything. What's the use of laws alone? The moment that actual combat was mentioned, the White Fox clan disciples immediately perked up. The Luo Divine Hall trial's final results depended on actual combat, which had the greatest weighting. Wu Feng did not speak. The Fei race was indeed proficient at actual combat. Even for Wu Feng himself, nomological insights was his weakness, while actual combat was his strength. In terms of actual combat, he was absolutely confident. Of course, compared to Princess White Fox, he was completely no match for her. Not only was Princess White Fox an instance of atavism, but she was also equally outstanding in laws, which the Fei race viewed as their weakness. She did not have any weaknesses. If not for Princess White Fox being well matched with Luo Huer, the White Fox Prince would not have been so confident. Upon thinking about this, Wu Feng glanced at Princess White Fox, who wasn't too far away from him. At this moment, Princess White Fox was looking at Yi Yun with a wistful look. Her eyes were concentrated on Yi Yun's toes. Her eyes were very pure, like a bright surface of a lake. Every ripple formed by Yi Yun's feet was clearly reflected in her pupils. Nonin, if this was the first time that you came to the primordial emperor in heaven, will you be able to do what he did? Noning was the elder sister of the Shadow Twins, while the younger sister's name was Nong Yue. Noning frankly shook her head and said, no. Just as Noning said this, the red-dressed woman beside her spoke. The red-dressed woman was leading the White Fox clan on this expedition, Fairy Red Fox. Schwer, that sort of footwork was created by Noning and Nong Yue with trial and error. The difficulty of pioneering is much higher than imitating. Yi Yun is only imitating. Fairy Red Fox gave Yi Yun a deep glance and said, of course, he is much stronger than I originally imagined. That's right. He's only imitating us. Nong Yue, the younger sister, said with a slight frown. Yi Yun's imitation of their actions made Nong Yue rather displeased. If he has the ability, he should pioneer a footwork that belongs to himself. If so, I'll have a high opinion of him. If not, he's just a person who imitates. Ordinary people might not be able to do so even if they want to imitate. Princess White Fox shook her head. With the Luo clan and White Fox clan disciples gathered, the Luo Divine Hall trials also began. And at this moment, the two spirit cruisers of the White Fox and Luo clan lifted off simultaneously. It flew away from the land mass where the Luo Divine Hall was. With that, the two spirit cruisers tunneled through the void, and before long, they used void transference to vanish completely. His supremacy has left. He will come to pick us up in 18 years' time. Seeing the two spirit cruisers disappear, the elites present had mixed emotions. The White Fox clan most likely had another supremacy powering the spirit cruiser. If not, they would not have been able to break through the spatial barrier of the primordial emperor in heaven. And from beginning to the end, they had not seen the White Fox clan's supremacy disembark from the spirit cruiser. Other than Princess White Fox and a few others, the rest did not know who the supremacy that powered the spirit cruiser was. A few of the Luo clan geniuses had managed to catch a glimpse of Supremacy Gulen only because of Empress Xian. After all, there was a battle for the throne, so Empress Xian had personally sent off the geniuses into the spirit cruiser. Supremacy Gulen had given the Empress face and he had shown his face for a fleeting moment. Following that, they did not even get to see Supremacy Gulen. Ultimately, the difference between them was too great. Be it the White Fox clan geniuses or the Luo clan geniuses, they were unqualified to have a Supremacy pay attention to them. Supremacy Gulen had lived for tens of thousands of years, and he had to send a batch of disciples to the primordial Empyrean heaven every 60 years. He had seen many so-called geniuses, so many that he was already numb to them. But in fact, the number of geniuses who would truly mature were rare. A general calculation was that even the person who came first in the Luo Divine Hall trials had a 1 in 10,000 chance of becoming a Supremacy. Hence, most major clans would cast a wide net when nurturing their young geniuses. Through tens of thousands of times of hard work being used to nurture millions of good saplings, having one of them mature was sufficient. Many of the elites present understood this, but understanding was one thing. If they truly thought of it, their pride would still receive a setback. For them to mature from a young age made them a remarkable existence. But in the backdrop of the entire clan, they were just one in several million. How could they feel reconciled with the fact of being belittled by others? Hard work. They had to produce good results. Everyone was led by the Luo Divine Hall elders as they flew towards the Luo Divine Hall. Upon landing, they saw the main palace and the surrounding towers, which immediately made these disciples feel tiny. It was too magnificent, as though they were mountains that sprouted out of the ground. The stone slates that lined the ground were also different from the Luo clan royal capitals. The material was unknown, but for them to last so long under the chaotic laws, they had to be extremely robust. Looking up at the Luo Divine Hall made it even more spectacular. It had levels after levels that linked it to the sky. "Go in," Elder Shur coldly said. The first level of the Luo Divine Hall was extremely wide. It could accommodate more than 10,000 people. Despite the large group of disciples entering, it still appeared extremely spacious. The vast grounds spun like gorgeous stars. Looking up, it was complete darkness. Everyone seemed to be standing alone in the universe, in the void of nothingness. And at different positions around these stars were dozens of gigantic rocks. These gigantic rocks emanated splendid chaotic auras, as though they were in constant flux. They did not appear real. This is the front hall of the Luo Divine Hall, called Astral Palace. The bearded elder Duanmu said. Elder Shur did not appear like he had the patience to introduce such matters. Your first trial will be held here. Once this hall is closed, it will not be opened again. You will not be able to find an exit. The bearded elder said with a rare smile. None of you have ever battled an ancient fae before, right? The disciples pricked up their eyebrows as some of them honestly answered, no. Then, all of you will soon have a chance. As the bearded elder spoke, he flung an incantation onto one of the gigantic rocks. A trail of light flashed past the stellar backdrop, and following that, a growl was suddenly heard from the darkness above their heads. This growl went straight to their hearts. Following that, drastic changes occurred as black gases gathered together into clouds, and in a blink of an eye, a gigantic head appeared. The head poked out of the darkness as a humongous eye glanced nonchalantly at the disciples below with a scarlet flash in its eyes. Upon seeing this head, the disciples felt as though their hearts had been wrenched. Dragon! A true Fey dragon! Yi Yun was also greatly taken aback. Back in Black Wind Valley's training, he had only encountered a land contaminated by a rotting Fey dragon after its death. And now, what he was facing was a true dragon itself. Bam! The gigantic dragon flew down and it landed on the ground. Its massive body resembled a mountain. Its breathing made many disciples involuntarily tense up. The primordial Empyrean heaven is a world that failed to take form. Not only do the astronomical bodies or great worlds fail to take form, even an ancient Fae born in primal times can fail in its evolution too. Most of the ancient Fae who failed to evolve would turn to ash under the immense river of time. However, there will be some who leave behind their soul essence that get wrapped in the most primordial gases of chaos. This allows them to last till the present day. Our Luo clan has collected a few ancient Fey soul essence to establish this palace. Elder Duanmu's words caused Yi Yun to secretly falter. Not only could a world fail to take form, even an ancient fate could fail to evolve. This allowed the production of valuable ancient Fey soul essences. These ancient Fey soul essence were restored through the use of the Luo clan's array formations. It allowed the depiction of such an incredibly realistic divine dragon. This ancient Fey soul essence isn't unique to the Luo clan, right? Yi Yun asked Gu Qing in a low voice. Gu Qing nodded and said, "Naturally, our Luo clan only occupies a portion of the primordial Empyrean heaven. These ancient Fey soul essences can be owned by other clans and Fey countries. For example, the White Fox clan's White Fox trials are very similar to our Luo Divine Hall trials." Yi Yun nodded. Both clans were in the primordial Empyrean heaven, so the resources they possessed were fairly identical. Hence, it was understandable that the trials they created were also similar. Yi Yun took another look at the divine dragon. The ancient Fey phantom image conjured by the array formation had the soul essence of an ancient Fey that failed in its evolution imbued into it. Its powers were obviously incomparable to a true dragon, but it was definitely not easily beaten. At this moment, Elder Shur spoke. "The gigantic rocks in front of you are known as Fey refining rocks. They are similarly produced from the primordial Empyrean heaven. Such special divine rocks conceal the soul essence of an ancient Fey that failed in its evolution and store them for a long time. It is also one of the heritage cornerstones of our Luo clan." As Elder Shur spoke, Elder Duanmu dispersed the incantation on the Fey refining rock. Following that, the conjured dragon dissipated into countless points of light. Elder Duanmu added on, "From now, we will begin testing your actual combat. Everyone will enter the array formation and battle with the ancient Fey soul essence in the Fey refining rock. I will be outside here and watch how well you will fight." Chapter 883, Zhenju. Battle with a true ancient Fey? Although it was a wisp of soul essence, it was still enough to excite everyone. The young geniuses present were basically all Heaven Fey other than Yi Yun. As descendants of the ancient Fey, the Heaven Fey were proud of their blood heritage. At the same time, they would be excited about anything that had to do with ancient Fey. The eyes of many people lit up as fighting spirit shimmered. All they had previously seen was the phantom images of ancient Fey conjured using bloodlines. And now, they had an opportunity to interact with a true ancient Fey soul essence. This combat experience was priceless. Seeing that the elites present were so excited, Elder Shur did not think much of it as he said, "Inject your spiritual energies into the Fey refining rock, and the battle will begin. However, it is impossible for you to gain victory in the battle. The ancient Fey soul essence in the Fey refining rock will constantly be reborn. Every rebirth increases its strength by several times. The ancient Fey soul essence can go under 19 rebirths in total. And that is to say, if you can kill the ancient Fey soul essence 19 consecutive times, it would be equivalent to clearing the trial, but that is impossible." Elder Shur said indifferently. The young elites present frowned slightly when they heard this. Impossible? Although they also knew that they had a long way ahead on their martial paths, they still felt under the weather when they were completely denied by others. Especially with Elder Shur's expression, it was as though he could not be bothered to speak another word. It was as though most of the young elites present were ants to him, not worthy of his attention. If the ancient Fey soul essence can be killed 18 times, how powerful would it be at the 19th time? Yi Yun cocked his head and asked Gu Qing. Elder Shur's words had sparked his curiosity. Gu Qing shook his head and said, "I only know that the Fey refining rocks are difficult to clear, but I have no idea how difficult the 19th round is either." Just as Gu Qing spoke, a pleasant-sounding voice resounded, "At the 19th time, it's probably when one approaches the level of a supremacy would one be able to beat it, I guess." Many people heard this when it was said. Everyone felt a jolt. Approached the level of a supremacy. That is way too ridiculous. Or it should be said that everything from the 5th round onwards is not prepared for us. The person who spoke was the black-dressed youth. His face was slightly pale, and his eyes were black with a luster. He had short hair and he had a white bone sword on his back that appeared blunt. There was a bird on his shoulder as well. This person was the mysterious youth from the Luo clan. Other than Luo Mo, no one present knew him. Typically, a person who can kill the first ancient phase soul essence's incarnation at the moment they step into the primordial Empyrean heaven is extremely rare. In fact, most people will be repelled out of the Fey refining rock at the moment they enter. Even at the end of the 18th year, they would barely be able to kill it once or twice. The mysterious youth spoke, and as he did so, he gave Princess White Fox a glance. Without a doubt, Princess White Fox was the strongest person amongst everyone present. It's this girl that Master specially pointed out. He said that she would be my greatest opponent. The mysterious youth said in his mind. After arriving in the primordial Empyrean heaven, his master had transmitted his voice into his ear, telling him to pay attention to this fox-eared girl in white. Furthermore, other than his master wanting him to do his best to surpass her, he had also added, whatever will be, will be. There is no need to be disheartened. It was as though losing to her was normal. This had ignited the refusal of defeat in this mysterious youth's heart. He would like to see how many times Princess White Fox could kill the ancient Fey soul essence. This. Young brother, may I ask who you are? Gu Qing could not resist asking. He was also a member of the Luo clan, but he had never heard of this person. It was as though he had appeared out of thin air. And most critical of all, this black-dressed youth appeared pretty impressive. Be it his stance or knowledge, he had completely surpassed him. Me? I'm Jianzhu, Supremacy Gulin's personal disciple. As I have always been cultivating with Master, I seldom am in the royal capital. The mysterious youth said in a carefree manner. His identity was not something that needed to be kept a secret. Supremacy Gulin's disciple? Gu Qing instantly felt choked. The surrounding young elites from the Luo clan were also dumbfounded when they heard this. They had already guessed that his pedigree was extremely high, but they had never expected him to be a Supremacy's disciple. There were very few Supremacies in the Luo clan. They only knew a handful of names of the Supremacies. Even if the reclusive existences were added, it was a number no more than 2 digits. Most Supremacies had become ascetics, and did not meddle with the political matters of the royal capital. They and the royal court were 2 different systems. These Supremacies were the true foundation of the Luo clan. There were extremely stringent restrictions for a Supremacy to take in a disciple, especially a personal disciple. They were far and few in number. After all, a personal disciple would inherit their mantle. All sorts of top resources would be spent on the personal disciple generously. A Supremacy's fortune was not unlimited either. They had to be very meticulous in taking in a personal disciple. There might even be Supremacies who only took in one personal disciple their entire lives. The status of a Supremacy's personal disciple was understandable. It was no wonder that Luo Mo was so respectful to the youth. After knowing the mysterious youth's identity, Ran Shui and Dongling Yu looked each other in the eye. They could only give a wry smile. Their titles as the royal capitals for great young masters were a joke in front of Jianzhu. The so-called royal capitals for young masters would change every few decades, so it was practically useless. As for a Supremacy, their Shushui Ran clan and Donglin clan had not produced a Supremacy in the past few millenniums. If the top few family clans in the Luo clan were as such, there was obviously no need to mention the other family clans. Supremacy Gulin's personal disciple. Princess White Fox looked at the black-dressed youth with a tiny bird on his shoulder. She was somewhat astonished, but that was all to it. The White Fox clan also had personal disciples of supremacies. However, even the personal disciples of supremacies were slightly inferior to her. The status of a royal progeny was also determined by one's talent and strength. Supremacies might seem out of reach to others, but for Princess White Fox, she could easily interact with them. She had received advice from supremacies as well. Begin attempting the trial. The Fey refining rock arrays can accommodate 20 disciples at a time. You can use your thoughts to choose the ancient Fey that you want to challenge. The form of the ancient Fey is not important, because regardless of the form, the ancient Fey's strength are similar. From the third round of killing the ancient Fey onwards, you will receive rewards. The rewards will be weapons or treasured materials. From the fourth kill onwards, you can obtain core heritage of the Luo clan, as well as ancient Fey bones. At that moment, Elder Duanmu spoke. The words he said gave everyone a burning desire to do battle. It was difficult, but the rewards made their blood boil with excitement. Ivern Yun also felt slightly stirred. Ancient Fey bone. He had previously absorbed a single ancient Fey bone, which had great benefits to his body and bloodline. Yun's bloodline and physique were still too weak, so an ancient Fey bone was like a timely gift. However, that would need him to kill the ancient Fey soul essence 4 or even 5 times. Chapter 884, Difficulty. Less than half a year had passed since Yun arrived in the 12 Empyrean heavens. Yun did not know what level his actual combat had reached. However, reason told him that actual combat was his weakness. As Yun had the purple crystal, he had a great advantage in the Desolate Heaven technique, and his nomological insights far exceeded the common members of the Fey race. But for actual combat, even at Azure Billow, Yun had defeated Luo Tian and Ranyu without using his true combat ability. Yun glanced at Jianzhu. Taking him as an example, he had accompanied a supremacy since he was young. He obtained the personal guidance of a supremacy, and he had cultivated top cultivation techniques. The pills and relics he used were top grade. Even the people who sparred with Jianzhu were great talents. By growing up in such an environment, Jianzhu's strength was understandably strong. Compared to himself, he started in the Cloud Wilderness and only began cultivating at the age of 12. In the first few years of cultivation, the cultivation resources that were available to him were extremely mediocre. His horizons and the things he encountered could not be compared to the 12 Empyrean heavens. Of course, with the purple crystal, Yun was able to experience certain opportunities Jianzhu might not have, but to convert that to actual strength needed time. Do you find it difficult? Guqing cocked his head and asked Yun. Yun noticed that Guqing did not seem relaxed. Guqing was also a famous figure himself, but in front of the top geniuses of the Luo clan and White Fox clan, Guqing felt somewhat disheartened. Fight it out and put in your greatest effort. The Luo Divine Hall trials will last very long. It's only the beginning. Yun was not anxious. He was not even 40 years of age yet. His martial path had just opened up. A moment's loss was nothing. At this moment, there were people who had already entered the Fey refining rock. There were a total of about 40 Fey refining rock in Astral Palace. The main rock in the middle was the size of a house. 20 people could go in at the time. As they stood in front of the largest Fey refining rock, a beam from the Fey refining rock immediately absorbed 20 people as a whole. Oh! Even the body is absorbed in. Looks like it's not a consciousness battle, but a true physical battle. Most of the elites present were waiting for the battle outcomes of these 20 people. Many of them were eager to battle an ancient Fey so that they could make a name for himself. Regardless if it was Elder Shi's disdain for them or the identities of Princess White Fox and Jianzhu, they had stimulated the competitive streak amongst these young elites. They were all proud children of heaven, so they had pride in their hearts. A successor of a supremacy was powerful, but the final outcome needed to be compared. Even if they truly lost, they did not want to lose too badly. Just as everyone was having various thoughts. Pang! With a dull thud, a Luo clan disciple was expelled in about 30 seconds after entering the Fey refining rock. He slammed heavily onto the ground as his face turned pale. Fail. Elder Duanmu seemed to value his words with gold, so he did not even say an additional word. This Luo clan disciple did not even manage to kill an ancient Fey phantom image. He only lasted for about 30 seconds. The gap was just too great. One did not mean much, but following that. Bam! 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 One trial taker after another was expelled. It was not limited to the Luo clan disciples. Even trial takers from the White Fox clan did not create any miracles. After lasting for about 5 minutes, they were also expelled out of the rock. After all, the White Fox had chosen the elites from their clan to participate in the Luo clan's trials. Those who were chosen were naturally not too bad. Those who were just chosen to make up the numbers were probably left in their own clans. However, despite being hand-picked, these people did not defeat the first ancient Fey soul essence. All the 20 who had entered the Fey refining rock first have failed. Elder Shur calmly announced the outcome. Clearly, the outcome was within his expectations. All of them failed. Even Lin Yu has failed. She only lasted for about 3 minutes. She is the top genius of the 5 states in the southwest. It was believed that Lin Yu would be able to dazzle at the Luo Divine Hall trials, but who knew that she would fail right at the beginning? The Luo clan disciple who spoke also came from the 5 states in the southwest. He was confident of himself, but after seeing Lin Yu fail so miserably, he was dumbfounded. He did not know how strong a supremacy's successor was, but he knew very well of Lin Yu's strength. He knew that he was much weaker than Lin Yu. If Lin Yu only managed to endure for 5 minutes, he would most likely not be able to last more than 3 minutes, much less defeat the first ancient Fey. Many people had such thoughts when they saw this. Everyone believed that they were extraordinary and that a miracle would happen to them. However, reason told them that it was highly unlikely that they would even clear the first stage. After the first batch of disciples exited, the second batch of disciples was up. Yi Yun saw a familiar person amongst the crowd, Luo Fengling. There were too many people who were qualified to participate in the Luo Divine Hall trials. Yi Yun, Gu Qing and company were of higher status than ordinary disciples. They were situated in front of the group. As for Luo Fengling, Luo Tian and company, they were mixed in the group. And because of this, Yi Yun was able to notice Luo Fengling. Luo Fengling smiled at Yi Yun. She did not have any hopes of creating a miracle. She knew very well that there was always someone better and that she was still far from the mark. If you are able to persist on, it's best to last as long as possible. Those who can persist longer than 5 minutes would be given more opportunities in this trial. If you can't even last 5 minutes, you might not be able to obtain a thing from this trial. Seeing many disciples appear uneasy, a rare instance of Elder Duanmu's tone turning soft happened. 5 minutes. In the previous test, only 1 out of 20 people managed to last 5 minutes. Even lasting 5 minutes appeared extremely difficult. Fail. 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 Elder Duanmu constantly said the same word. Up to now, not a single person had managed to threaten an ancient Fey soul essence. All have failed. Next batch. In a blink of an eye, another few dozen people were eliminated. Few could even last 5 minutes, much less kill an ancient Fey. With the passage of time, most of the disciple had entered the Fey refining rock. Following that was the time for the true elites of the Luo clan and White Fox clan. It's your turn. Do not be too disappointing. Elder Duanmu said with an indifferent expression. Fairy Red Fox giggled, hee hee, your Luo clan's Fey refining rock array is more difficult than my White Fox clan's. But even so, I believe Elder Duanmu would not be disappointed any further. Nonying, Nong Yue, go on up. Fairy Red Fox nonchalantly chose the twins. Nonying, Nong Yue. The White Fox Clan's shadow twins. Elder Duanmu frowned slightly. He knew very well that at this Luo Divine Hall trials, the Luo clan was very likely going to lose to the White Fox clan. Firstly, this generation of the White Fox clan was very strong. Secondly, many of the elites of the Luo clan had been sent to the White Fox clan to participate in the White Fox clan's trials. Those left behind in the Luo Divine Hall were naturally inferior to the White Fox clan's elites. However, despite knowing this, be it Elder Duanmu or Elder Shi, they would still be displeased if they really lost. Elder Duanmu glanced at Jianzhu. The only person left to hold the ground in the Luo clan was Jianzhu alone. However, the White Fox clan's geniuses were many in number. It was not even Princess White Fox's turn, but the Shadow Twins. After the Shadow Twins, there was Wufeng, whose strength was relatively similar to theirs. It would be too early to use Jianzhu at this point in time. Upon thinking of this, Elder Duanmu looked at the rest. The upper echelons of the Luo clan had instructed that they were not to weaken their stance at the trials. Elder Duanmu also had a general understanding of the strength of all the elites present. Sweeping his gaze across the Luo clan disciples, there was no one comparable to the Shadow Twins. They were all far too weak. They were destined to lose this stage to the White Fox clan. It was an outcome without question. Forget it. We can only choose a general from among dwarves as long as we do not lose too badly. With this thought in mind, Elder Duanmu nominated Ran Xue, Dong Lin Yu, Gu Qing, Yi Yun. All of you, go on up. He was nominated. Yi Yun exhaled deeply and he walked towards the Fei refining rock. The opponents are the Shadow Twins. Elder Duanmu nominated us probably for us to be cannon fodder. Beside Yi Yun, Gu Qing said with a wry smile. Gu Qing usually thought highly of himself, but in front of the Shadow Twins, he could not feel any pride. He could only resign himself to fate and accept the reality. Yi Yun declined to comment. He glanced deeply at the Shadow Twins, Nonying and Nong Yue. They were both tall, not much shorter than he was. Their legs were long and straight as though they were measured against a ruler. Their beauty was impeccable, and their bearing was extremely powerful. With the twins standing in front of the Fei refining rock, they became the focus of attention. The two girls were truly unfathomable. After coming to the 10,000 Fei Empyrean heaven, Yi Yun had fought with too few people. He had only fought a few miscellaneous chores disciples at Ntifonling. He had yet to fight with true 10,000 Fei Empyrean heaven geniuses. Yi Yun could not estimate how powerful they were. Yi Yun truly did not have much confidence when it came to the true combat competition with the Shadow Twins. Standing in front of the Fei refining rock, Nong Yue glanced at Yi Yun. You learned the footwork of me and my sister. Nong Yue appeared to bear a grudge with Yi Yun's learning of their footwork. Yi Yun was rendered speechless as he did not know how to respond. Nong Yue said again, your name is Yi Yun, right? Princess Xuer had complimented your desolate heaven technique and even said that you might be a match of me and my sister at this trial. However, I do not believe so. Many elites would bear wasting time on the desolate heaven technique in their youth. Just being good at the desolate heaven technique is nothing. Strength is everything. I know your forte is nomological insights. At the Luo Divine Hall trials, there will be a competition on laws. I will defeat you on the nomological insights that you pride yourself in. Of course, all of this needs you to be able to last 5 minutes in the Fei refining rock array. After Nong Yue said this, her elegant body flashed and disappeared into the Fei refining rock. Yi Yun was rather speechless looking at Nong Yue's back. He had only learned her footwork and he had been targeted. Of course, what Princess White Fox had previously said probably made Nong Yue treat him as her opponent. Upon thinking about this, Iyun glanced at Princess White Fox and took a step forward and stepped through the Fey refining rock. With a flash, Iyun entered a completely unfamiliar space. Chapter 885, Battling the Ancient Fey. What unfolded in front of Iyun was a desolate grass plain. Tall grass that reached his hips endlessly stretched throughout the plain. Other than Iyun, everyone else had disappeared, even the Luo Divine Hall had disappeared. Choose the ancient Fey you want to battle. A voice suddenly pierced through Iyun's mind. At the same time, information regarding the ancient Fey was injected into his mind. More than 100 ancient Fey of all shapes and sizes appeared. Iyun even saw the three-legged golden crow and the 9 neonate amongst them. The three-legged golden crow and 9 neonate were considered two of the more powerful ancient Fey. Iyun had a good understanding of them since they were his aspect totems. However, just understanding them was not very useful. After all the Heaven Fey, who entered the Fey refining rock, had their own corresponding ancient Fey ancestors. They obviously understood their own ancestors very well. Yet, it remains to be seen who had defeated an ancient Fey. Furthermore, if he chose an ancient Fey that cultivated in the same laws as him, the amount of damage that he could inflict would be greatly limited if he were to use those laws. For example, if Iyun wanted to use Pure Yan laws to kill a three-legged golden crow? Difficult. The three-legged golden crow's Pure Yang laws would only surpass Iyun's. Defeating an ancient Fey, even if it was just a soul essence, was something very difficult for the present Iyun. I choose the Rani fish. The Rani fish was the ancestor of the Shushui Ran clan. The Rani fish was not considered very powerful amongst the ancient Fey. Furthermore, after having a vendetta with the Shushui Ran clan, he had an understanding of the Rani fish. By choosing an ancient Fey that he was familiar with and one that was countered by Pure Yan laws, it would make things easier for him. After Iyun made his choice, the vast grass plains disappeared and it changed into a roaring sea. Floating above the sea surface, a strange fish appeared out of the sea. It had a snake's head and a fish's body. It had 6 legs and 2 rows of sharp teeth. In 30 seconds, the battle will begin. Choose your weapon freely. Self-brought weapons, puppets, pills are not to be used. The voice boomed again. Following that, several kinds of weapons appeared in Iyun's perception. However, all the weapons were of the same quality. In addition to not being able to use pills and puppets, this battle was truly considered fair for everyone. The Pure Yang broken sword, the sun-shooting 9 death's bow and the God Advent Tower cannot be used. Iyun gasped slightly. All the treasures he had was considered top grade, especially the God Advent Tower. During the battle of the black-armored demon god, it had played an important role, but now it could not be used. Furthermore, his opponent was an ancient Fey spirit essence. Such a battle was too difficult. Phew! A sword with a metallic luster appeared in Iyun's hand. When Iyun injected his Yuan Qi into it, he realized that other than the sword being hard, it did not gain any augmentation from his Yuan Qi. Syncing his thoughts, his spiritual energy interfaced with the black-armored demon god puppet, but he discovered that the connection had been severed. Only the Draco First True Gold remained available. The Draco First True Gold could still be used? Iyun was slightly surprised. Upon careful thought, it was understandable. The Draco First True Gold possessed a part of his soul, so in terms of aura, it was identical to Iyun. The Fey refining rock array probably banned all treasures without any life to it. Since an avatar was also part of his strength, it was not excluded. At this moment, the Rani fish let out a scream. It opened its humongous mouth and spat out a blue water column. The water column dispersed in the sky and it split into droplets of water that shot straight at Iyun. The clear water droplets contained tremendous power in them. Each of them was as hard as divine metal, and they were powerful killing devices. Iyun retreated in a hurry as he slashed outwards. Cha! 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 His sword beams interweaved into a net as they struck the water droplets, bursting them apart. However, after they exploded, they did not dissipate. Instead, they coagulated very quickly. As for Yi Yun's sword beams, they only pierced through the gaps between the droplets, not affecting them at all. A sword could not stop the flow of water, and as a water-based ancient fae, the Rani fish was equally proficient in water laws. It coagulated the water droplets that attacked Yi Yun from every direction. Thousand Snow Domain. With a thought, a sea of flying sabers formed around him. They were not the thousand snow flying sabers, as all Yi Yun could use was an ordinary saber array. Although the quality of the sabers was weaker, the conjuring of the saber array still remained powerful. The water droplets were once again sliced through. The wantonly dancing saber beams sliced the countless water droplets into a water mist. However, Yi Yun knew very well that the water mist would immediately coagulate. He had very little time for himself. So, Yi Yun's body shot forward like an arrow. He used the hundredth of a second that the water droplets needed to coagulate, and charged through the water mist to attack the Rani fish. To kill the Rani fish, he needed to strike its body. Just as Yi Yun approached the Rani fish, it opened its jaws and attempted to bite Yi Yun. At the instant when the Rani fish opened its mouth, a raw and fishy wind emitted from it. It did not resemble a phantom image in any way. It was like a true ancient fae. This was probably the effects of being constructed by a soul essence. Die. Yi Yun circulated the Great Empress Heart Sutra as all his pure yang power burst out. A burning strike that resembled the sun slashed out. This strike contained the pure yang sword palace's sword intent. The single strike caused the sky to change colors. The sea in which the Rani fish was lurking was split apart by Yi Yun's strike. A blue ravine seemed to open up as the water surface rose up like cliffs. Large amounts of seawater began to pour down like a waterfall. Cha! Blood splattered. The Rani fish had been injured by Yi Yun's strike. However, at the moment that the sword beam pierced through the Rani fish's body, Yi Yun's heart skipped a beat. He sensed that at the moment that the sword beam pierced through the Rani fish, its innards seemed to dodge the strike like a water flow. The beam did not truly injure the Rani fish's vital organs. Was this an effect of water laws as well? Yi Yun did not have time to consider this. The injured Rani fish still possessed terrifying offensive power. It opened its mouth and spat out a blue sword, formed completely from water laws. At such a close distance and the sword's extremely fast speed, it was nearly impossible to dodge. Pang! There was a flash as the Draco First True Gold appeared in front of Yi Yun. It held a saber in its hand to block the sword strike, but the terrifying power still sent the Draco First True Gold flying backwards. The Rani fish's fish came biting once again. Just as it was about to bite Yi Yun's head, Yi Yun slanted his head. Phew! 999,000 snow-flying sabers formed a silver band where Yi Yun's head previously was, shooting out straight into the Rani fish's mouth. As the flying saber pierced through the Rani fish's fish throat, Yi Yun could feel that strange feeling again. The Rani fish's body was like water. Its flesh dispersed to the sides like water. Although the flying saber had pierced through it, causing blood to spill, it was not severely injured. This defensive strength. Yi Yun's heart sank. Indeed, every ancient fae had something terrifying about them. There had been so many Luo clan and White Fox clan geniuses who failed at killing a single ancient fae. With so many failures, it was obvious how difficult it was. Yi Yun knew very well that he too would not win if he were in their shoes. At this moment, outside the Fae refining rock array, Elder Shur and Elder Duanmu were looking at the largest Fae refining rock in silence. As the controllers of the arrays, Elder Shur and Elder Duanmu could obviously see what was going on. However, Fairy Red Fox could not. Although she could not see what was happening, she was not worried about the Shadow Twins at all. However, on the Luo clan side, it was different. If it was the successor of a supremacy, it was probably still worth watching, but if it were anyone else, the person would probably be greatly lacking. Fairy Red Fox asked with a smile, "Elders, what do you see? Can you tell me?" Elder Duanmu's eyelids moved as he said, "The battles are very intense. Many of them are close to their limits." Ha ha ha! Fairy Red Fox laughed seductively. "It's not bad to be able to last this long. It seems that the Luo clan disciples you send out this time are still not bad. I wonder how the two little girls on my side are doing." Fairy Red Fox's tone annoyed Elder Duanmu extremely. Fairy Red Fox was a junior to Duanmu at best, so he was obviously displeased of a junior acting so smugly in front of him. Furthermore, she had the things to back her smugness. Elder Duanmu slightly frowned as he said, "Nonying and Nonyue have each killed an ancient fae." When Elder Duanmu said this, all the disciples were confounded. Already killed one. The people before had all failed. They could only be graded based on the length of time that they lasted. The person who lasted the longest did not last past 6 minutes. And now, at just 3 minutes, the Shadow Twins had each killed an ancient fae. The gap was just too huge. The faces of the geniuses present turned ugly. They felt it jarring. Everyone was an elite, but why were they so far from Nomying and Nomyue? Upon hearing Elder Duanmu's reply, Fairy Red Fox said with a smile, "Nonying and Nomyue are skilled at combined attacks. By separating them, their combat power will decline greatly. Killing an ancient fae in 3 minutes is still passable." Chapter 886, Killing the Rani Fish. When Fairy Red Fox said this, the surrounding Luo clan elites were rendered speechless. Despite having killed an ancient fae in 3 minutes, Fairy Red Fox had claimed that the Shadow Twins were skilled at combined attacks, not fighting alone. Although they knew that Fairy Red Fox was saying those words intentionally to posture, they had also guessed that what she said was true. As twins, Nonying and Nonyue were probably able to be of one mind. They could definitely obtain double the results with half the effort when cultivating in combined attacks. The Shadow Twins seemed lofty and unreachable. They stood on a pedestal so high that it could only be reached by Jianzhu out of all the younger generation of the Luo clan currently present in the Luo Divine Hall. Upon thinking about this, many people looked at Jianzhu. With a bone sword behind his back, Jianzhu looked at Elder Duanmu and asked, "Senior Duanmu, other than the Shadow Twins, how are the others?" "The others?" Duanmu shook his head. "They are already gradually approaching their limits. Ran Shui would probably be able to last the longest. He has been conserving his strength all this time and he has about 60% of his stamina left. As for Guqing, his foundation is still relatively weak. He will be defeated faster than Ran Shui." Conserving his strength? That sure is a smart way of doing things. Fairy Red Fox chuckled as she said sarcastically. "In the Fey refining rock array, if one could not kill the ancient Fey, it would then depend on the amount of time that they lasted. The longer one lasted, the better it would reflect on them. Hence, with the mind of conserving his stamina, Ran Shui had begun evasive maneuvers the moment he entered the array to stall for time. He could obviously last for a long while in such a situation, but it was equivalent to giving up the possibility of defeating the ancient Fey. In contrast, someone truly outstanding would use an indomitable spirit to fight for that ray of hope to defeat an ancient Fey, even if the odds were against them. What about Yi Yun? How's Yi Yun? Jianzhu asked again. Yi Yun is battling fiercely and he is expending a great deal of his stamina. If this goes on, he might not be able to last 5 minutes. Less than 5 minutes? Then, wouldn't he be expelled very soon? Although Yi Yun was human, he was still a member of the Luo clan. Many of the Luo clan disciples present still wished for Yi Yun to gain some face for the Luo clan. Even if he lost, they did not wish for him to lose too terribly. Although it was impossible to defeat a single ancient Fey soul essence, it would still reflect well on them if he could last for a longer period of time. He should not be able to last much longer, however. Oh! Elder Duanmu's heart suddenly skipped a beat as a look of surprise appeared in his eyes that were staring at the Fey refining rock. Boom! The Draco First True Gold avatar was thrown backward as it took a hard knock for Iyun once again. Phew! A fiery arrow burning with pure yang flames shot straight at the snake-like neck of the Rani fish. As it pierced through the Rani fish's body, a blood of rain burst out. However, the liquefaction phenomenon happened in the Rani fish's body again. It diffused most of the arrow's power and it was only left with minor injuries. With such a strange defensive method, Iyun knew very well that he was bound to lose if this carried on. Golden Crow! Iyun roared as a three-legged golden crow aspect totem appeared behind him. At the same time, the Tang Valley phantom image appeared behind him as well. The raging flames in the valley connected the land to the sky. Above the valley, a Fusang tree stood erect and on its crown hung 10 blinding suns. 10 suns from Fusang, who masters pure yang. The Rani fish used water laws for its defense, causing its body to act like flowing water. Slashes at it resulted in nearly zero reaction. Only the power of pure yang could deal it a bit of damage, but it was not enough. Iyun's yuan qi was decreasing. If he was to compete in expenditure with the Rani fish, he was bound to lose eventually. He had to attain victory in one strike. Iyun roared and the three-legged golden crow shrieked as it merged into the sword in Iyun's hands. The sword burned with a shimmering flame as though it was about to melt. Ah! The Rani fish let out a cry as it opened its mouth and bit at Iyun. This was the common means of attack for the Rani fish, and Iyun was also waiting for this instance. He circulated the Great Empress Heart Sutra to its limits and together with his sword, he charged into the Rani fish's gaping mouth. One with the sword. Boom! Iyun charged straight towards the Rani fish's belly as the pure yang flames around him burned. The Rani fish's body liquefied once again as it wanted Iyun to pass through its body. But at this moment, Iyun resolutely made up his mind as all the pure yang power in his key acupuncture points spewed out like an erupting volcano. Golden Crow Inferno Immersion, blazing into the ether. Iyun's surroundings had turned into a sea of fire. With pure yang laws, Iyun endured the horror of the inferno's blazing. But even so, his skin ruptured from the burning. Instantly, it was as though the sun had risen in the Rani fish's mouth. Tons of fire swept around as billions of gallons of seawater were evaporated. The Rani fish's body bloated as though it was about to explode. This time, it could not expel the raging pure yang flames with the water elemental laws that it knew. The Rani fish let out a cry as blood gushed out of its mouth, but the blood was instantly evaporated by the flames. The Rani fish's life force rapidly drained away from its body as well. However, this was a method that damaged the enemy and dealt nearly the same damage to oneself as well. Iyun had to withstand the impact of the terrifying energy explosion. Although his body had been reconstituted with the ancient Fey bone at Azure Billow, there was too little time and the strength he gained from it was far from enough. The strong impact left Iyun's arms covered in blood. However, he still gripped the sword tightly as he pointed the sword tip forward. Split! Iyun and his sword pierced through the Rani fish's body. His body was stained with blood. Some of it was his, and some of it was the Rani fish's. His yuan qi was completely depleted and he could no longer stand up straight. Iyun had bored a huge hole through the Rani fish's body. Its innards had been burned into a mess, but an excruciating pain came from his arms. The bone in his arms had been fractured. The Rani fish slowly stopped struggling. Its corpse floated to the surface of the sea. The seawater was boiling because of the pure yang flames and it was later dyed red with the Rani fish's blood. Was it finally over? At this moment, Iyun collapsed completely. He lost control of his body as he plummeted towards the sea. At the moment that Yi Yun delivered his desperate strike in an internecine assault on the Ronnie fish, Gu Qing had also been expelled from the Fei refining rock. At this moment, 5 minutes had just passed. Although it was barely 5 minutes, the two Luo clan elders would still consider Gu Qing's combat performance during the results evaluation. Launching a blitz attack was obviously different to constantly dodging. Gu Qing managed to last for 5 minutes. As for Yi Yun, he managed to do so for more than 5 minutes. At this juncture, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. At least did they not lose too terribly. Furthermore, from what Elder Duanmu said, Yi Yun had been desperately fighting from the moment he had entered the Fei refining rock array. It was truly commendable for him to last this long while engaging in such a fierce battle. Chapter 887, Severely Injured. In the Grand Hall, the Fei refining rock array shimmered. When Gu Qing was expelled, Elder Duanmu said fail nonchalantly, but his attention was still focused on the Fei refining rock array. How are the rest? Fairy Red Fox swirled her hair and asked. Elder Duanmu's eyebrows moved as he said with a deep voice, Nonying and Nonyue have wounded the second ancient Fei. Wounded the second ancient Fei? Fairy Red Fox smiled. She was very satisfied with Nonying and Nonyue's combat strength. After all, the second ancient Fei was many times stronger than the first ancient Fei. The Shadow Twins were still able to wound the second ancient Fei after engaging in a full battle with the first ancient Fei. They had far surpassed all the disciples before them. What about the others? Fairy Red Fox asked as the corners of her mouth curled. Ran Shui still has a lot of stamina left. He should still be able to last for a while. As for Yi Yun, he is about to come out. Coming out? To be able to last 5 minutes with the first ancient Fei is still not bad. Fairy Red Fox nodded, and she did not despise Yi Yun in any way. After all, with his background, such a result was pretty good. However, compared to the Shadow Twins killing the first ancient Fei in 3 minutes and wounding the second ancient Fei, he was still a good deal away. Bam! The Fei refining rock shimmered as Yi Yun was expelled. Gu Qing and Yi Yun nearly came out at the same moment, but Gu Qing only had a pale face with a few injuries, but for Yi Yun, he was covered in blood and he had completely fainted. This is... Everyone was stunned. Seeing Yi Yun about to collapse to the ground, Elder Duanmu pointed into the void and held Yi Yun's body, preventing him from falling to the ground. He was so severely injured? Not a single part of Yi Yun's body was fine. His Yuan Qi had also been completely drained. It was just a trials array. Was that a need to go to such extent? Battling an ancient Fei in the Fei refining rock was not an illusion. It was a true battle in an interspatial zone. Although Elder Duanmu was watching, and the chances of death were unlikely, being too severely injured could affect the subsequent trials. Coupled with the fact that the ancient Fei was too strong, many people began keeping a distance once they realized that they were no match. Few people were like Yi Yun who fought so desperately. He's injured so badly? That punk is foolhardy. He might as well have conserved some strength for his cultivation. There's no prize from being so badly injured. Many people were shaking their heads. Although Ran Shui's tactics were rather underhanded, it was still considered quite a good tactic. Dragging out time by using hit-and-run tactics was much better than being so miserable like Yi Yun. Just as everyone was waiting for Elder Duanmu to declare Yi Yun's failure, they were surprised to see Elder Duanmu looking at Yi Yun in silence. Why? Elders, what are the two of you looking at? Fairy Red Fox asked Elder Shi and Elder Duanmu with a smile. Elder Duanmu remained silent for a while before saying, Yi Yun won. He killed the first ancient Fei. Although he did so at his limits, he had still won. Ha! He won? Everyone was confounded when they heard this. Yi Yun actually won? No one would be surprised if the Shadow Twins won. The Shadow Twins were two of the top geniuses in the White Fox clan. As for Yi Yun, he was unknown before this and he had just suddenly appeared with his lowly beginnings. In everyone's heart, Yi Yun's strength was weaker than Gu Qing's. But now, Yi Yun had managed to last for 5 minutes just like Gu Qing. Gu Qing's defeat was unsurprising, but Yi Yun had managed to kill the first ancient Fei? I thought he would lose. The strength he showed in battle was even weaker than Ran Shui's by a tiny bit, but Ran Shui is still stalling for time while battling with the ancient Fei. As for Yi Yun, he had struck back, and by expending most of his Yuan Qi, he launched a fatal strike, hitting the ancient Fei's weakness. So, he won. His strength was slightly weaker than Ran Shui, but he was able to win? Everyone was amazed when Elder Duanmu said this. Although an individual's strength played a decisive role in the outcome of a battle, at times, one's fighting spirit, techniques, will, and insights could play important roles. For Yi Yun to be able to defeat the first ancient Fei in the absence of sufficient strength was truly surprising. Yi Yun actually managed to defeat the first ancient Fei. Gu Qing was startled. As one of the Luo clan disciples who had just experienced fighting an ancient Fei, he knew how powerful the ancient Fei that he encountered in the Fei refining rock was. He was no match for it. And as a heaven Fei, Gu Qing had a sense of awe towards ancient Fei. Furthermore, it was not an illusionary realm, it was a true battle, so the suppressive feeling was extraordinary. Yet, Yi Yun had managed to strike back and kill an ancient Fei under such circumstances. Gu Qing found this matter incredulous. At this moment, a White Fox clan disciple's lazy-sounding voice was heard. He only killed the first ancient Fei, but that was at the cost of going unconscious. To put it bluntly, it's just an internecine struggle. Do you need to have such great reactions? Those who aren't aware of it might think that he had consecutively killed 2 or 3 ancient Fei. Don't forget that our White Fox clan's shadow twins are still in an intense battle inside the Fei refining rock. And at the 3-minute mark, they had each killed the first ancient Fei. The surrounding White Fox clan disciples echoed in unison when this was said. That's right. Yi Yun only relied on desperation for him to luckily clear the stage. What is of true value is still strength. We have so many talents from the White Fox clan this time. Senior sisters Nonying and Nonyue have only just begun. When the White Fox clan disciples said this, the Luo clan disciples fell silent. Indeed, although Yi Yun's performance was not bad, the reason why he garnered attention was because of Yi Yun's low starting point. To many geniuses, Yi Yun was not much different from them. Under such circumstances, it was surprising for Yi Yun to kill the first ancient Fei. However, compared to the geniuses in the White Fox clan, he was indeed nothing much. The Shadow Twins were truly terrifying. The Shadow Twins would truly leave Yi Yun in the dust upon comparison. At this moment, the Fei refining rock shimmered as 2 figures were expelled from the Fei refining rock several seconds apart. So painful. Nonyue rubbed her delicate wrist. Her forearm was stained with blood. From the way she winced her nose, it looked somewhat adorable. I couldn't beat it. That bull's hide was too tough. Stabbing it with a sword, the wound was a foot deep, but there was no reaction despite me stabbing it a few dozen times. Nonyue grumbled. However, her words caused people to gulp. Nonyue was battling the second ancient Fei that was several times stronger. Not only did she last long in battle, she had also managed to stab the ancient Fei a few dozen times? Not only so, Nonyue had managed to escape relatively unharmed. Despite being injuries, compared to Yi Yun. Yi Yun was currently the one with the best results amongst the Luo clan disciples, but he was unconscious. Fairy Red Fox beamed as she stroked Nonyue's head and said, "Well done." Why is Yi Yun unconscious? Only then did Nonyue notice Yi Yun. As Yi Yun had previously mimicked her footwork, this young lady was still bearing a grudge. Yi Yun did inordinately well and he managed to luckily kill the first ancient Fei, but his strength was ultimately insufficient, so he was severely injured. There's no need to mind him. The strongest person from the Luo clan is Jian Zhu. He is the only opponent at this Luo Divine Hall trials that is worthy of your and Nonying's attention. When Fairy Red Fox said this, Nonying and Nongyue glanced at Jianzhu. Although Princess Shuer was strong, her opponent was Luo Huier. Her and her sister's mission was to beat Jianzhu. Be it Nonying or Nonyue, they did not believe that they would lose. "Aunt, don't worry. I will definitely beat Jianzhu." Nonyue waved her fist and said confidently. She did say it with a Yuan Qi transmission, so although it was not very loud, everyone could hear it with their powerful hearing. Eldersher took a meaningful glance at Jianzhu and said, "I'll take Yun away to treat him." "Jianzhu, you are up." With the declaration of war made, they obviously had to face them in battle. Without Princess Purple Spirit around, Jianzhu was the face of the Luo clan. Jianzhu could not lose, or at least, he could not lose to the Shadow Twins. Jianzhu took a deep breath and he walked towards the Fei Refining Rock. Immediately following him was a burly man from the White Fox clan. He was filled with a murderous intent, and there was a light ivory-colored scar on the middle of his eyebrows. A heavy sword hung behind his back. His name was Wufeng. Wufeng versus Jianzhu. The Luo clan disciples present turned nervous. Compared to Yun, they were certainly more concerned about Jianzhu's results. Chapter 888, Primordial Space. 6 hours had passed by the time Yun had regained consciousness. He slowly opened his eyes and he saw a gray ceiling. Looking around, he realized he was lying in a stone chamber. The stone chamber was extremely Spartan. The surrounding black rock was cut into furniture which looked heavy and cold. "Your ability at recovery exceeds my expectations for you. Wake up in 6 hours. Your physique might not be strong, but strangely, the energy from a relic that you consume is absorbed very fast by you. This allowed you to regain consciousness so fast. If not, you would truly have missed important events at the trials." A cold-looking elder was also in the stone chamber. Yun remembered this elder to be Eldersher. "Thank you, Senior." Yun was cognizant of the fact that it was all thanks to the purple crystal that he was able to absorb the energy so fast. Even in a state of unconsciousness, the purple crystal was still able to absorb energy and help his body recuperate. Furthermore, the purple crystal's existence surpassed anyone's perception. Even with Yun lying there motionless, Eldersher's probing was to no avail. He could not understand why Yun absorbed the energy at such a rapid pace, because there was no way for him to find the purple crystal. The purple crystal was too amazing. Its existence was beyond Yun's comprehension. Eldersher was indeed very curious. When he probed Yun's body but failed to find the exact reason, he could only conclude that Yun had a special bloodline that resulted in him absorbing energy at an extremely fast rate. After all, life was complicated. There was a myriad of bloodlines, so it was understandable that there were bloodlines he did not understand. Yun sat up from the stone bed and stretched his body. He realized that he had recovered most of his Yuan Qi. This made Yun marvel at the amazing effects of the purple crystal. With a supreme-grade recuperation relic, the purple crystal could allow the relic's effects to reach its maximum effect. "Senior, this junior wants to ask how were the results of the people who later entered the Fei Refining Rock." Yun was already unconscious when he was expelled from the Fei Refining Rock array. He was eager to know how strong the Shadow Twins and Princess White Fox were. Yun's question was within Eldersher's expectations. He said, "After you, the Shadow Twins also came out of the Fei Refining Rock array. The sisters had not only killed the first ancient Fei, but they had also severely injured the second ancient Fei. The ancient Fei's energy expenditure reached about 50%. This was with the Shadow Twins holding back. If they were to fight as desperately as you did, this ratio would probably be higher. As for Wufeng, he was stronger by a bit. He managed to drain 70% of the second ancient Fei's energy. Wufeng's combat strength is very outstanding. You can probably sense the thick bloodthirst aura from his body. He must have encountered several life and death fights. Finally, Princess White Fox. She was the only one who managed to kill the second ancient Fae. Furthermore, against the third ancient Fae, she had managed to hold on for a minute. She had even managed to injure the ancient Fae. Eldersher nonchalantly said this as Yi Yun drew a gasp. The gap. He had given all he had to kill the first ancient Fae as well as a stroke of luck. After killing the ancient Fae, he had fell unconscious immediately and was expelled from the Fae refining rock array. He did not even encounter the second ancient Fae. As for Princess White Fox, not only did she kill the second ancient Fae, but she had also injured the third ancient Fae. The difficulty of the Fae refining rock array had geometric growth as it progressed. How powerful was the third ancient Fae supposed to be? What about the Luo clan? Yi Yun hurriedly asked. For our Luo clan, Luo Mo was about similar to you. After killing the first ancient Fae, he was already unable to fight the second ancient Fae and he was expelled. As for Jianzhu, his performance was the best. At least his results were much better than Wu Feng's, allowing him to defeat the Shadow Twins as well. So he did win back some face for the Luo clan. Thank you. Yi Yun clenched his fists subconsciously. His path was still long. He had to charge and race towards them step by step. From your eyes, you did not seem disheartened. Very well. Eldersher nodded. I'll be taking you to the primordial space. Everyone who managed to last 5 minutes on the first level or managed to injure the first ancient Fae are allowed to enter the primordial space. As Eldersher said this, he grasped Yi Yun's hand. With a nonchalant step forward, the surrounding space distorted. Yi Yun felt dizzy as traversing through the chaotic laws of the primordial Empyrean heaven was taxing on his mental strength. At the next moment, Yi Yun had already arrived at a gigantic cloister. This cloister was tall and wide that reached out 1,000 feet. Even if a massive ancient Fae was here, it could easily pass through it. The cloister was built from unknown rocks and at the end, there was a rustic bronze door. The door was as tall as the cloister and there were all sorts of glyphs of divine beasts carved onto the door. It was majestic and impressive. Yi Yun and Eldersher appeared like ants in front of the cloister. This feeling could not help but make Yi Yun curious about the things behind the door. At this moment, Eldersher had already put his hand out to press on the door. Following that, the 30-foot thick door that was of immeasurable weight was pushed open by Eldersher. Seeing the scenery behind the bronze door, Yi Yun's heart skipped a beat. Behind the door was empty space. The space was permeated with a nebulous fog, and it was unknown how wide it was. The magnificent cloister disappeared at this point, as though it became part of the void. The Luo clan disciples and White Fox clan disciples that had been selected had already been waiting in this space. Yi Yun noticed that there were a few rustic rocks floating amidst the nebulous fog. They did not have any color to them and they were all gray. It was as though they had been abandoned at a particular corner of the world for billions of years. Yi Yun could not help but probe the rocks with his mental energies. He discovered that these rocks were somewhat similar to the Fae refining rocks on the first level, but the aura that they emanated was completely different to the Fae refining rocks. Yi Yun, are you fine? Seeing Yi Yun appear, Gu Qing was surprised as he immediately came up to him. You recovered so quickly? Everyone had seen the scene of Yi Yun being expelled. They were very aware of how injured he was. Even with the conditioning of a supreme-grade relic, it was difficult to recover so quickly. After all, the higher the relic's grade was, the more powerful its medicinal essences were. It made the absorption slower. You sure recovered pretty fast. It looks like your strength might be weak, but your ability to take a beating is rather good. Nong Yue said with a grin. She was not being sarcastic with Yi Yun, but she was just outspoken. However, Nong Yue's words sounded harsh on the ears. Nong Ying stared at her younger sister. Yue, don't be unreasonable. Nong Yue stuck her tongue out and no longer spoke. Yi Yun could not be bothered either as he said to Gu Qing, "It was nothing serious. Elder Shi had just mentioned primordial space to me. What's the matter with this place? What's so special about it?" Gu Qing felt a hint of excitement when the primordial space was mentioned. He said, "Elder Duanmu had just mentioned that this primordial space is an ancient space left behind at the formation of the universe. It has existed for billions of years, and our Luo clan happened to chance upon this space while exploring the primordial Empyrean heaven, so this place was stored. There are many mysteries to this space. Look at the nebulous fog." Elder Duanmu had just mentioned that the nebulous fog is the most ancient gas of chaos. What is even more fascinating are those rocks. They are chaos stones formed at the beginning of the universe. These are chaos stones. Yi Yun was alarmed. He obviously knew about chaos stones. World stones were used as currency in the 10,000 Fei Empyrean heaven. They were the crystallization of energy and laws at the birth of a world. As for chaos stones, their value was several times higher than world stones. They were the crystallization of the gases of chaos and origins energy at the birth of the universe. They even contained the most nomological origins of the universe. The energy contained in world stones allowed them to be used as currency. As for chaos stones, they were typically not sold as their value was immense. They could be used as one of the foundations of a mighty faction. Yi Yun, these chaos stones not only possess laws. From what Elder Duanmu said, these chaos stones are just like the Fei refining rocks. Sealed within them are auric charms of ancient Fei. However, it's no longer ancient Fei soul essence, but the true auras of Fei gods. Fei gods. Gu Qing's words gave Yi Yun a fright. The 12 ancient Fei gods were the coagulation of the supreme laws. Back at Imde Azure Billow, Yi Yun had seen the divine column and the carvings that the Luo clan constructed for the 12 Fei gods. However, those divine columns were left behind by Luo clan ancestors after all. The Luo clan ancestors might be strong, but they were considered weak when placed in the entire 12 Empyrean heavens. Due to the limitations of their cultivation levels and nomological insights, the divine columns that they produced could not replicate the true laws of the Fei gods. Compared to the chaos stones that had the auras of the Fei gods sealed within them, the divine columns could not even be compared as a night and day difference. This was also the limitations of the Mt. Azure Billow ancient Fei edifice. However, in the primordial space, such a situation did not exist. This was the aura of the Fei gods sealed in the chaos stones. It was true origins laws. These chaos stones will be lent to us? Yi Yun was also excited. No wonder Gu Qing was so excited when he mentioned the primordial space's utility. I guess so. Gu Qing was also eagerly anticipating it. Even with Gu Qing's background, this was the first time that he had seen a chaos stone. There are few chaos stones, far fewer than the number of us here. Although it can be lent to us, there should be a time restriction. It's unknown how the time will be allocated. Furthermore, we will need to share them with the White Fox clan. The White Fox clan. Upon saying this, Gu Qing gave the White Fox clan geniuses an unnerved glance. Junior Brothery, you might not be aware that the White Fox clan is one of the most intelligent races with extremely high perception amongst the Fei race. Furthermore, those who awaken their nine-tailed White Fox bloodline are extremely proficient in nomological insights. For example, the Shadow Twins are such a case. The Shadow Twins had managed to use their feet to flatten the chaotic energy flows when they came to the primordial Empyrean heaven. It was evident how high their nomological perception was. Gu Qing's words were heard by the sharp-eared Nong Yue. She looked over with a grin. She revealed a smile as though it was a show of might. What you understand is pretty good, and you weren't wrong. I'm not good at killing, but when it comes to nomological insight, I like them the most. Chapter 889, Only Soup Left. Elder Duanmu stood in front of the Luo clan and White Fox clan disciples as he looked at the ancient rocks floating amidst the nebulous fog. This primordial space is the core of the Luo Divine Hall. The auras of the Fey gods that are sealed in the Chaos Stones are Fey God Stones. There is a total of 27 Fey God Stones here. The 27 Fey God Stones differ in size and quality. When you meditate with them, you are free to select them according to your preferences. As Elder Duanmu said this, he waved his hand. Dozens of white beams shot out of his sleeves, and they landed in everyone's hand. Yi Yun caught one of the white beams of light. It was a jade slip. Yi Yun sank his consciousness into it. The jade slip introduced the Fey God aura sealed in each Fey God stone, as well as the quality of each Fey God stone. The largest Fey God stone was about a square foot in size, but it was so heavy that Yi Yun found it unbelievable. A Fey God stone that was a square foot in size was heavier than 100 mountains. If it were thrown onto the ground, it would sink straight to the core of a star, due to its stunning weight. Probably as a result of this reason, the Fey God stone that was a square foot in size was called Penetrating Star Rock. Although the Penetrating Star Rock was the biggest stone, it was not the most valuable one. There was a Fey God stone that was rarer than the Penetrating Star Rock, named Three God Seal. The Three God Seal stone was about half a foot long. Sealed within it were 3 different auric charms of Fey gods. The 3 auric charms of Fey gods had merged into one in this Fey God stone, causing its value to far exceed the rest of the Fey God stones. The Penetrating Star Rock and Three God Seal were basically the best Fey God stones in the primordial space. The rest were far worse. Yi Yun put down the jade slip and scanned the people behind him. There were about 70 disciples that had the right to enter the primordial space. However, there were only 27 Fey God stones. There was not enough for everyone. Many people realized this problem as they looked at Elder Duanmu. After reading the Fey God stone's introduction, return the jade slips. The number of disciples that entered the primordial space totals 71 people. The disciples that fail to kill the first ancient Fey can only stay in the primordial space for 8 hours a day. Those who manage to kill the first ancient Fey are allowed to stay in the primordial space for 16 hours a day. As for the choice of the Fey God stones, Princess White Fox will choose first, followed by Jianzhu, then Wufeng, the Shadow Twins, Luo Mo, and then Yi Yun. Elder Duanmu recited the names of those who had obtained the best results at the Fey Refining Rock Array in order. The better the results, the higher the priority they had. Furthermore, everyone was not limited to one Fey God stone. For example, Princess White Fox's choice took precedence over everyone else. She could spend 16 hours a day to choose any of the Fey God stones. If Princess White Fox were to choose the most profound Three God Seal, she would gain exclusive use of the Three God Seal for 2/3 of the time. As for the remaining 1/3 would most likely be taken by Jianzhu. Just 2 people could hoard the Three God Seal. Jianzhu still had plenty of time left, and it was typical that he would choose the Penetrating Star Rock that was the second most valuable. As for the remaining time for the Penetrating Star Rock, it was no doubt going to be taken by Wufeng and the Shadow Twins. By the time it was Yi Yun and Luo Mo's turns, there would be little time left for the best Fey God stones. Yi Yun and Luo Mo could only wait for Princess White Fox to temporarily abandon the Three God Seal when she failed to gain any insights from it so as to win the precious time that they needed to study the Three God Seal. As for the rest, those who did not even kill the first ancient Fey had no chance to even touch the Three God Seal. Upon understanding the allocation rules, many people had ugly expressions. One of them was Ran Shui. Amongst all the disciples that did not kill the first ancient Fey, Ran Shui had lasted the longest, a total of 9 minutes. With this result, Ran Shui was feeling rather complacent. However, when he exited the Fey Refining Rock Array, he was informed that Yi Yun, who had entered the array together with him, had managed to kill the first ancient Fey. This did not really matter, but now, he was informed that because of his failure to kill the first ancient Fey, the amount of time that he gained to obtain insight from the Fey God stones was half of theirs. Furthermore, he had to wait for the rest to choose first. As such, how could he feel appeased? Elder Duanmu. How can this rule work? Aren't we conceding the best resources of our Luo clan to the White Fox clan? Ran Shui was anxious. There were only 18 years for the Luo Divine Hall trials. It was extremely precious, and it would largely determine their future success to a large extent. However, under the regulations, Ran Shui was only able to gain insight into a tiny amount. He was bound to be left in the dust by Jianzhu and company. He might even end up being inferior to Yi Yun. Upon hearing Ran Shui's voice transmission, Elder Duanmu frowned and said coldly, "Conceding them to the White Fox clan is because you did not live up to expectations. The rules are this. The White Fox clan might obtain more resources in the Luo Divine Hall, but Princess Purple Spirit would also obtain greater resources from the White Fox clan. What everyone gets is based on their own merits." Elder Duanmu gave him a good scolding right to Ran Shui's face, rendering him speechless. What else could he say? At the Fei Refining Rock trial, he had failed to beat Yi Yun, whose strength was weaker than his. "Princess White Fox, you can begin. If you wish, you can join the time allocated for your meditation each day. You can even study it for a month in one go." The Jade Slips only had a general introduction of the Fey God Stones. One needed to take a personal look to see if it was suitable for oneself. "Thank you, Senior Duanmu." Princess White Fox smiled and she stepped into the nebulous fog of the chaos gases. Her body turned blurry in the fog, and moments later, she walked out of the fog and said, "I will choose the 3 God Seal for 20 days, and the penetrating Star Rock for 10 days. Princess White Fox made her decision. However, when the Luo clan disciples present heard this, they felt their hearts ache. Instantly, the 2 best Fey God Stones were taken up. Furthermore, it was only the first person, and so much time was taken up. How much would there be left when it was their turn? Elder Duanmu was not surprised with Princess White Fox's choice. Amongst all the Fey God Stones, the 3 God Seal was the most profound. The laws it contained were the most intricate as well, so it was natural for Princess White Fox to choose it. Next, Jianzhu. Jianzhu had narrowly beaten Wufeng, but now, that bit of advantage was extremely important. "Senior Duanmu, I've chosen as well. I'll first study the penetrating Star Rock for 20 days before studying the 3 God Seal for 10 days. The time Jianzhu chose to study the Fey God Stones was complementary to Princess White Fox's. In the first month, the 2 best Fey God Stones were monopolized by the 2. Many of the Luo clan disciples present felt bitter. Others had the chance to eat meat, while all they had was soup to drink. Princess White Fox and Jianzhu had monopolized the first 30 days. In accordance with the rules, they would have a period of rest after that. During this period, the 3 God Seal and the penetrating Star Rock would be free. However, Wufeng and the Shadow Twins would not stand on ceremony to split the idle time. With that, there was nothing left. And up to this point, it would be Luo Mo and Yi Yun's turns. Chapter 890, An Unexpected Twist. MW spoiler, this chapter will link up Martial World to True Martial World. Junior Brother E, it's our turn. Upon seeing this situation, Luo Mo gave a wry smile. He felt wistful and he estimated that for the first half of the year, there was no chance for him to touch the 3 God Seal and the penetrating Star Rock. Even towards the end, it was probably hard for him to come across a time when Princess White Fox or the Shadow Twins would choose not study the penetrating Star Rock or 3 God Seal. The amount of time left for him to meditate with it was extremely minute. The 3 God Seal was the most profound stone, yet with such a short time given to him, what could he comprehend from it? Upon thinking about this, Luo Mo was envious of Princess White Fox. She could meditate with any of the Fey God Stones in the primordial space. Such an opportunity was something that he had no chance of doing. Not only did the Luo Divine Hall trials not give them a chance to catch up to top geniuses, it was actually opening up a gap. This was the rule of the 10,000 Fey Emperor in heaven. The best resources were gathered together to develop the best talents. Brother E, it looks like we have become fellow sufferers, Luo Mo said in a self-deprecating tone. Yi Yun's eyebrows moved as well. He found it regretful as well. He also wanted to take a look at the three gods seal that condensed the auric charms of three Fey gods. Unfortunately, Yi Yun's ranking was behind Luo Mo. Even if Luo Mo had a chance, there was no chance for him. After the three god seal and penetrating star rock, the quality of the other Fey god stones had an obvious qualitative drop. The better ones were the 7-star rock that had 7 points of light on its surface, the squarish 4-side slab, and the shimmering gem, lit star. These three Fey god stones were close in quality, so there was not much difference when choosing any one of the three. Yi Yun looked at each stone and he was in no hurry to make a decision. The training at the primordial space was an important part of the Luo Divine Hall trials. It was pertinent to choose the correct Fey god stone. Even if he knew that he could not choose a supreme-grade Fey god stone, he could not be careless. Yi Yun looked at all of the 27 Fey god stones. The first few Fey god stones were highest in quality, but towards the end, the quality was increasingly inferior. The 20th Fey god stone was about the size of a bull. The auric charm of the Fey gods contained within it was not even a tenth of the other Fey god stones before it. But even so, Yi Yun took a look at every Fey god stone. However, why are there chaos stones other than the 27 Fey god stones? Yi Yun noticed that there were 3 rustic stones floating among the chaos gases. These 3 rocks were about 5 to 6 square feet. They were larger compared to the penetrating star rock, and on the surface, they had patterns that looked like ripples. They were engraved by the flow of chaos gases over billions of years. Are those 3 chaos stones? Yi Yun asked Luo Mo. He shook his head, indicating that he was uncertain as well. With a slight probe, Luo Mo could not sense any auric charms of a Fey god. He said, it should be an ordinary chaos stone. A chaos stone that was formed at the beginning of the universe is still very valuable, even if it fails to seal in the auric charms of Fey gods. Furthermore, it's such a large chaos stone. Although Luo Mo said this, Yi Yun still felt that something was amiss. These 3 chaos stones gave him a special feeling. And previously in the jade slip that Elder Duanmu passed him, only the 27 Fey god stones were introduced. These 3 were excluded. Senior Duanmu, what are they? Since Luo Mo did not know, Yi Yun could only ask Elder Duanmu. Elder Duanmu was sitting in the nebulous fog as he said, I can't give you an answer. Oh? Elder Duanmu did not use a Yuan Qi voice transmission. So when everyone heard this, they were surprised. Even Elder Duanmu, the guardian of the Luo Divine Hall, did not know what the 3 divine rocks were. Are they not chaos stones? Luo Mo was somewhat perplexed. From his probing, the 3 stones were ordinary chaos stones. However, Elder Duanmu said, they are more profound than ordinary chaos stones. As to why they are profound, no one in the Luo clan knows. Actually, not even the Luo clan, even in the other clans of the 10,000 Fey Emperor in heaven, there is probably no one who can exactly explain what mysteries these 3 divine rocks hold. When Elder Duanmu said this, everyone was astounded. Even the other clans of the 10,000 Fey Emperor in heaven did not know? But if everyone could not understand, how did they determine that it was profound? Elder Duanmu seemed to guess the thoughts of everyone as he said, I believe that all of you know that there were 12 Fey gods at the birth of the universe. Everyone nodded. They obviously knew about the 12 Fey gods, the ancestors of everything. Yi Yun, tell me. What are the 12 Fey gods? Elder Duanmu said again. Yes, Senior. Yi Yun had been to Azure Billow, and he had entered the ancient Fey edifice. In the ancient Fey edifice, there were 12 columns, each carved with the 12 Fey gods. Yi Yun had obtained an entering motion and 2 hibernation awakening ratings there. The 12 Fey gods are: embodiment of pure yang, the first Fey god, extreme yang illumination. Embodiment of pure yin, the second Fey god, extreme yin nether glow. Amalgamation of the 3000 great Tao, the third Fey god, Empress Earth Tao Tree. The ancestor of dragons, Dragon Emperor. The ancestor of all birds, seven-colored phoenix. Fish and bird in one, Kuan Pang. Humanoid Fey god, heavenly man. The river of time, river of forgetfulness. The embodiment of space, solitary nothingness. There are a total of 9 great Fey gods. But for the remaining 3, it was left vacant in the ancient Fey edifice. Back then, Lord Sung Mang's explanation was that the identities of the final 3 Fey gods are impossible to confirm. Although many mighty figures have managed to infer their existences, they are unconvincing. Hence, the final 3 Fey gods are a mystery. Upon saying this, Ian took a careful look at the 3 gigantic chaos stones. Does Senior mean that? That's right. Elder Duanmu nodded. Amongst the 12 Fey gods, the existence of the last 3 Fey gods are still unknown. However, no one doubts that there were 12 Fey gods at the birth of the universe. The reason is because of the traces left behind in chaos stones. There are chaos stones that seal the auric charms of the Fey gods scattered in the primordial empyrean heaven. There are a total of 12 types of chaos stones. The first 9 allow us to meditate over their profoundness, resulting in us being able to deduce the true form of the Fey gods. As for the final 3, it is difficult to deduce any of their mysteries. Hence, amongst the 12 Fey gods, there are 3 vacancies. Once Elder Duanmu said this, everyone was enlightened. Many of them were previously curious as to how people were so certain of the existence of the 12 Fey gods at the formation of the universe and the birth of life. So, it was because of the chaos stones. However, if the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey empyrean heaven could not comprehend the last 3 Fey god stones, there was no way they could. The 3 Fey god stones were useless no matter how large they were. At this moment, Elder Duanmu said, these 3 Fey god stones are stored in the primordial space as a symbol. It's considered a form of worship for the 12 Fey gods. None of you need to care about them. In fact, out of the 12 types of Fey god stones, the last 3 are considered by everyone to be the most profound of all Fey god stones. However, their values are lower than any of the previous 9. What Elder Duanmu said was rather reasonable. Since no one could comprehend them, their values were obviously low. Iyun nodded his head while thoughts went through his head. Since so many predecessors were powerless against the 3 Fey god stones, Iyun did not believe that he could create a miracle. He was just about to abandon the 3 Fey god stones when, out of a curious coincidence, Iyun stopped when he turned around. As he looked at the 3 Fey god stones, a sense of disquietude filled him. Hesitating for a moment, he opened the purple crystal's energy vision. And this act of his made Iyun see an inexplicable scene. The 3 gigantic chaos stones had disappeared, and replacing them were 3 magical items. The closest object to Iyun was a black cubic object that was spinning. The black cube had runes that covered its surface, and it was like it had absorbed all the light around it. Even the space that was suppressed by chaos gases was distorted by it. It looked mysterious and ancient. The thing furthest from Iyun was a blood-colored bead. It exuded a boundless bloodthirsty aura. Even with the energy vision, a glance at it made Iyun feel like he was plummeting through a blood pool in hell. And in between the black cube and the blood-colored bead, there was a purple crystal. It looked like it was sculpted from amethyst. Upon seeing the purple crystal, Iyun was completely dumbfounded. He held his breath as his heartbeat stagnated. Isn't that the purple crystal that had always been hidden in his body? Iyun subconsciously pressed down on his chest. In the position of his heart, the purple crystal quietly lurked. With each heartbeat, it gave a faint energy fluctuation that spread throughout Iyun's body. Chapter 891, 3 Fey Gods. The black cube, the crimson bead, and the purple crystal that emitted strange energies. What Yi-Yun had always seen in his energy vision was energy in the form of points of lines and dots for everything. However, these three objects were completely different. Even in the energy vision, Yi-Yun could clearly see the individual objects as a whole, as well as the mysterious textures on their surfaces. However, Yi-Yun knew very well that the three divine artifacts he saw in his energy vision were just projections because of the portion of the original auric charms that were sealed in the Chaos Stones. Based on this inference, the purple crystal in his body was one of the 12 Fey gods? To be precise, the purple crystal, along with the crimson bead, and the black cube were three of the most mysterious Fey gods of the 12 Fey gods that no mighty figure in the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven had managed to comprehend. Yi-Yun found it unbelievable that the purple crystal was actually a Fey god. However, were the 12 Fey gods living beings? Yi-Yun would not be surprised if the Empress Earth Dao Tree, Dragon Emperor, Seven-Colored Phoenix, Koanpang, and Heavenly Man were living beings. But Yi-Yun would find it hard to imagine if one claimed that Extreme Yang Illumination, Extreme Nether Glow, River of Forgetfulness, and Solitary Nothingness were living beings. Extreme Yang Illumination's shape was just a circular black-colored plane, while Extreme Nether Glow was a white-colored ring. River of Forgetfulness was just a river of time, while Solitary Nothingness was just an endless void. Instead of calling them living beings, it was better to call them amalgamation of laws. As such, Yi-Yun would not be surprised if the purple crystal was considered to be an amalgamation of laws. Yi-Yun had a deep appreciation for the purple crystal's power. Now that he discovered that the purple crystal was one of the 12 Fey gods, Yi-Yun found the purple crystal even more profound and mysterious. What law did this purple crystal, that was born out of the chaos along with the universe, amalgamate from? As for the crimson bead and the black cube, what were they? Yi-Yun fell silent. His eyes were completely fixated on the chaos stones that had a portion of the purple crystal's auric charm sealed within. Junior brother Yi, why do you keep standing in front of the three Fey God stones? Don't tell me that you are interested in them? Luo Mo previously believed that Yi-Yun had only asked out of curiosity. But by the looks of it, Yi-Yun was very interested in the three Fey God stones. A bit. Yi-Yun nodded, surprising Luo Mo, who said in response, Junior brother Yi, didn't Elder Duanmu just say? Those three Fey God stones may contain the auric charms of the last three Fey gods, but even the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven were unable to sense it, much less us. The Jade Slips previously recorded 27 Fey God stones, but it excluded these three. It is apparent that the predecessors of our Luo clan do not believe that these three Fey God stones are of any value. Although Luo Mo had been defeated by Yi-Yun at Empress Luo's banquet, he did not bear a grudge on Yi-Yun. Instead, he gave Yi-Yun some advice. From Luo Mo's point of view, Yi-Yun was too young and he might make a bad choice on the spur of the moment. After all, the best penetrating star rock and three-god seal had been chosen by Princess White Fox and company. The remaining Fey God stones were greatly inferior. He believed that Yi-Yun, being young and impetuous, might feel indignant with missing out on the opportunity, and he decided to go for broke by choosing the three Fey God stones that even the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven failed to comprehend. If that was the case, he was just harming himself. Yi-Yun did not respond to Luo Mo's words. He was already completely immersed in the world of the Fey God stones. He felt as though he was wrapped in the core of the Fey God stones. The gigantic purple crystal was floating in front of him, and the tinier purple crystal origins was spinning in his heart, making it seem like a shadow of the gigantic purple crystal. The purple crystal sleeping in my body should be the true embodiment of the purple crystal. Yi-Yun was slowly able to confirm that the auric charm sealed in one of the Fey God stone was identical to the purple crystals. That meant that a true Fey God was sleeping in Yi-Yun's body. Among the 12 Fey gods, the last three Fey gods were very different to the first 9 Fey gods. As for their exact differences and connections, they were beyond Yi-Yun's comprehension. Although Yi-Yun possessed the purple crystal, what he had was highly concentrated Origin's laws. It was impossible for Yi Yun to gain any insights from the purple crystal itself. However, the Fey God Stone, it had a tiny portion of the purple crystal's laws that had been diverted away and were recorded in the Fey God Stone in detail. Although this portion of laws was a tiny ratio of the purple crystal origin's overall laws, it was like a vast sea to Yi Yun. It was enough for him to study them for years. Yi Yun had a hunch that it was as though this Fey God Stone only existed for him. Junior brother Yi, Elder Duanmu, has been waiting for a long time. Are you done choosing? Luo Mo asked. Only then did Yi Yun awake from the purple crystal's illusionary realm. He nodded and said, I'm done choosing. Luo Mo gave Yi Yun a worried glance. No matter how he looked, Yi Yun had a confident expression. It did not seem like it would bear any good. Realistically speaking, by missing a chance at the Three God Seal and penetrating Star Rock, one should not look that happy. Since he had already given Yi Yun some advice, he wished that Yi Yun would heed it. Out of the nebulous fog of chaos, Luo Mo said, Elder Duanmu, I will choose the Lit Star and 7 Star Rock for 15 days each. All right. Elder Duanmu was not surprised at Luo Mo's choice. He recorded it down and looked at Yi Yun. What about you? Yi Yun did not immediately answer and instead asked Elder Duanmu, I would like to inquire about a matter. The rules set by Elder Duanmu previously, those disciples that managed to kill the first ancient Fey are allowed to stay in primordial space for 16 hours a day, and those disciples who failed to kill the first ancient Fey are only allowed 8 hours. Is the rationale behind this rule a result of there not being enough Fey God Stones? The trial takers present did not expect Yi Yun to ask such a question. Wasn't this obvious? He just needed to choose a few Fey God Stones, but he had lingered inside the nebulous fog of chaos for so long. Furthermore, when he came out, he had to ask such an obvious question? Elder Duanmu nodded and said, yes. If that is the case, I would like to ask. If I were to choose a Fey God Stone that no one else chooses, can I stay in the primordial space for the whole time without coming out? Yi Yun's question confounded all the trial takers present. What was the meaning behind Yi Yun's words? His strength was not considered very strong, and he had barely managed to kill the first ancient Fey through an internecine struggle. He had paid such a heavy price to have a selection opportunity just second to Luo Mo. Was he planning on leaving aside the 7-star rock, Lit Star, and the 4-side slab for some scrap? Some of the Fey God Stones in the primordial space were the size of bowls, so the laws that they contained were obviously limited. No one wanted them, so was Yi Yun going to choose them? Everyone could not comprehend him. Even Princess White Fox looked curiously at Yi Yun. That's right. If no one chooses it, there is no problem for you to stay in the primordial space all day. Although Yi Yun's question was odd, Elder Duanmu answered him seriously. Thank you, Elder Duanmu. With the given permission, Yi Yun was overjoyed. This was truly a pleasant surprise. This meant that he could stay in the primordial space all day. Then I've already chosen. I'll choose the 3 Fey God Stones condensed out of the 3 unknown Fey Gods. Yi Yun's voice had bold undertones as it reverberated throughout the area. Everyone was stunned hearing Yi Yun's choice. Elder Duanmu had just introduced the 3 Fey God Stones to be something that even mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Empyrean in heaven failed to comprehend. Was Yi Yun mad? Ignoring Yi Yun, even Princess White Fox, as well as young elites who were far more outstanding than her, could not compare their nomological insights with a mighty figure of the 10,000 Fey Empyrean in heaven. The difference was greater than night and day. If Yi Yun was attempting to comprehending something that even mighty figures could not comprehend, wasn't that like an ant trying to shake a tree? What a laughable act of overconfidence. Junior brother Yi, you really chose it. Luo Mo stared at Yi Yun and he was at a loss of words. He had a hunch previously and had advised Yi Yun. However, Yi Yun seemed obsessed to tread the road of no return. Junior brother Yi Yun, I know you aren't happy that you couldn't choose the penetrating Star Rock and the 3 God Seal, but the lit star and 7-star rock aren't that bad either. It's enough for the two of us to study it. You can just compliment me on the time. Luo Mo sighed and shook his head. He found it regretful. Yi Yun's results were very good, but he had wasted an opportunity. It made the people who had worse results than Yi Yun luck out. And indeed, Luo Mo saw Ran Xue's excited expression, on the brink of bursting out laughing. Ha ha ha! The heavens are truly helping me. Yi Yun actually abandoned the 7-star rock and the 4-side slab. I'll be free to study them. Ran Xue clenched his fists. He felt indignant to have lost to Yi Yun before because he believed that he was stronger than Yi Yun and that he had only lost because he had avoided doing battle. It had particularly embarrassed and aggrieved Ran Xue. But now, with the 7-star rock and the 4-side slab, he could diligently reach Yi Yun's level. In time to come, he would leave Yi Yun in the dust. On the road of martial arts, the most taboo thing was to think too highly of oneself. Yi Yun had clearly entered the path that would lead him astray. Chapter 892, The Blooming of the Void Orchid, Part 1. Yi Yun, are you certain about your choice? Elder Duanmu paused for a long time, but he noticed no changes in Yi Yun's intentions. This choice is not just a few months of meditation time. In the future, the ratio will still be the same as your previous choice. I will look at the results of your cultivation in 7 years' time. That is to say, in the upcoming 7 years, each of you will study your own Fei God Stone. Unless you are willing to exchange, there will be no further changes. But I believe that for you, Yi Yun, no one will exchange with you. I'm asking you one last time, are you certain? When Elder Duanmu said this, everyone looked at Yi Yun. 7 years. The Luo Divine Hall trials lasted for 18 years. The 7 years took up nearly half the amount of time. This was the important stage at which one lay their foundations. It was no joking matter. If he chose the last 3 Fei Godstones and failed to gain any insights, Yi Yun would have wasted 7 years. Without any exaggeration, the 7 years was sufficient to impact Yi Yun's future achievements. Everyone believed that Yi Yun would flinch, but unexpectedly, Yi Yun nodded without hesitation and said, Senior Duanmu, I'm certain. Elder Duanmu's eyebrows pricked up and he seemed somewhat upset, but he still recorded Yi Yun's name down. Everyone had the right to make their own choices during the Luo Divine Hall trials, but at the same time, they had to be responsible for their own choices. Furthermore, Yi Yun's performance may be good, but he was not the most important Luo clan disciple that Elder Duanmu valued the most. The person that Duanmu valued the most was Jian Zhu. It was not bad if a genius who would attain greatness in the future out of 100 Luo Divine Hall trials. At the trials, Jian Zhu was the person who was worth expending effort to nurture. As for the others, they were just icing on the cake. Even if Yi Yun were to persist in error, he would not continue to persuade him. Yi Yun returned to the group, and as he was walking back, Ran Xue was already striding forward into the nebulous fog of chaos. The excitement on his face was unconcealed. To Ran Xue, this was like a gift that fell into his lap. And this gift lasted for 7 years. Junior brother Yi, although I do not know why you gave this opportunity to me, I still have to thank you. Ran Xue said with a beaming smile. Yi Yun obviously knew what was on Ran Xue's mind. He was showing gratitude on his lips, but he was probably treating him like a retard in his heart. Yi Yun could not be bothered to humor Ran Xue in hypocritical politeness. He just remained silent and he pretended not to hear him. Ran Xue was not annoyed either, as he happily entered the nebulous fog of chaos to choose the Fei God Stones he wanted to study. Unsurprisingly, Ran Xue had chosen 7-star rock and lit star. After Ran Xue, people entered the nebulous fog of chaos to choose their Fei God Stones. Soon, the 27 Fei God Stones were selected. Even the remaining Fei God Stones that were the size of bowls had their meditation schedules filled. It was fortunate if one could enter the primordial space. Even a bowl-sized Fei God Stone that had a true Fei God's auric charm sealed within it. As for most of the trial's disciples who did not even have a chance of entering the primordial space, they could only stay in the front hall of the Luo Divine Hall to meditate over ancient Fey stones that were inferior in quality. Comparing an ancient Fey with a Fey god was like comparing night and day. Alright, all of you have made your choice. Next, you are free to cultivate. As Elder Duanmu said this, he snapped his fingers. A gray item the size of a rice grain appeared. It was a seed. I will grow a void orchid here. When 7 flowers bloom, I will come and see the results of your cultivation. As Elder Duanmu said this, the void orchid seed began to take root and sprout in the void. It was a fascinating plant that could grow in space. A flower would bloom every year, so 7 flowers meant 7 years. The first batch of disciples who do not get a chance to mediate with a Fey God stone, please leave the primordial space for now. The Luo Divine Hall has already prepared residences for you. Around your residences, there are some array formations that can help test your strength. In addition, the continent on which the Luo Divine Hall lies is extremely extensive. The further you go, the more primordial and chaotic the laws are. If you want to gain nomological insights, you can also walk deeper into the primordial space. However, the depths of the primordial space are extremely dangerous. You might encounter a variety of unexpected objects. So act according to your own ability and do not venture too deep or you might die outside. In previous Luo Divine Hall trials, it is common for disciples to disappear. Many of the times, they're corpses that couldn't even be found. All the best. As Elder Duanmu said, he led the disciples, who were not temporarily not allocated a Fey God stone, out of the primordial space. Instantly, the primordial space only had 28 people left. The first 27 Fey God stones had a corresponding person matched to it, while Yi Yun had the last 3 special Fey God stones. The teleportation nexus of the primordial space was temporarily sealed. There was not a sound in the entire primordial space, as though it was a forgotten world. The void orchid grew silently, while the 27 gray Fey God stones quietly floated in the nebulous fog, as though they were mysterious tombs. Princess White Fox was the first to walk in front of the 3 God seal. She immersed her consciousness into the Fey God stone as she connected her consciousness with the 3 Fey Gods' auric charm. She silently stood in the void as her white dress fluttered. Her long hair danced as it shimmered with electric flashes. Her head was tilted up slightly, as though she was listening to something, while revealing the beautiful contour of her neckline. Seeing Princess White Fox begin to meditate, Jianzhu also walked in front of the penetrating star rock and he sat down. Everyone went forward and Yi Yun's location was in the deepest depths of the nebulous fog. The primordial space was filled with the gases of chaos. These gases were the origin gases at the formation of the universe. It was also not easy to gain any insights from this chaos gases. The young elites present, including Yi Yun, were not at that stage. Yi Yun sat in front of the purple crystal Fey God stone. Beside Yi Yun was a girl from the White Fox clan, who was meditating with the 27th Fey God stone. Looking at the pathetic Fey God stone in front of her, she muttered to herself, "Sigh, my Fey God stone is way too tiny." Her name was Lan Xiaoma. She was not tall and she had navy blue long hair. She was different to purebreds of the White Fox clan, which also indicated that her bloodline was not pure. In the previous trial, Lan Xiaoma had barely been qualified to enter the primordial space. However, compared to her Fey God stone, Yi Yun's appeared worse. Lan Xiaoma could not help but look to her side. Out of curiosity, she secretly probed the gray-black cube Fey God stone to the left of Yi Yun. And without any surprises, she did not sense anything. The Fey God stone felt empty, as though nothing was in there. Can anything be figured out from such a thing? Lan Xiaoma blinked her dewy eyes and she could not comprehend why. Yi Yun did not look dumb either. He might gradually give up. No one has the patience to stare at an empty rock for several years. Although the 7 years would be a waste, he still has this extensive landmass to gain deeper nomological insights. Although the speed of cultivation is far inferior to mediating with a Fey God Stone, it is at least barely passable. With this thought in mind, Lan Xiaoma immersed her consciousness into the bull-sized Fey Godstone as she entered a deep meditative state. Chapter 893, The Blooming of the Void Orchid, Part 2 of 2. MW Major Spoiler: this might start to become quite a spoiler for Martial World, but not till somewhere much further in the future for Martial World. When Yi Yun's consciousness connected to the ancient Fey God Stone, he felt that everything around him had vanished. The young elites who were meditating around the Fey God Stones, as well as the lingering nebulous fog of chaos, had all disappeared. Yi Yun came into a completely unfamiliar world. Wherever he looked, it was the deep depths of the universe. And beneath his feet were brilliant spiraling galaxies with breathtaking beauty. And in front of Yi Yun was the purple crystal origins with shimmering purple light. It was suspended in the void and it was slowly spinning. After Yi Yun came to this alternate world, he tried to look into the purple crystal that was embedded in his heart countless times, but the purple crystal was as mysterious and clear as it ever was. Looking at it made it seem transparent, but Yi Yun had no idea what profound mysteries it possessed. And today, the purple crystal that Yi Yun saw was completely different. The feeling of not knowing anything had disappeared. In Yi Yun's vision, the purple crystal range extended out limitlessly. It gave Yi Yun the feeling that there was a universe in the purple crystal. The purple crystal expanded as it revolved, as it became ethereal. It slowly spread throughout the universe, clouding Yi Yun's field of vision with a misty purple color. And amid this emanated color of purple, Yi Yun saw a figure with its back facing him. The person was a man with long hair. He wore a black suit of armor, and he held a spear in his hand. Yi Yun felt that this figure was a good distance away from him, but the moment he saw this person, Yi Yun felt his heart quiver intensely. He felt like he was facing the universe and the primordial stars. As the figure slowly turned around, a terrifying pressure surged at him. There was intense killing intent with worldly laws trembling. Amid such magnificent pressure, Yi Yun felt like he was a tiny boat in a storm, and he could be swallowed up at any time. Who was this person? Yi Yun found it hard to think. The pressure from the figure and the impact of the nomological forces around him made Yi Yun feel like his body and soul were separating. At this moment, Yi Yun felt an extremely familiar aura from the man with long hair. It was the purple crystal. A purple crystal body shimmered in the man's chest, almost identical to the feeling that Yi Yun had with the purple crystal. Yi Yun did not believe that this person was the future him. Could it be the past owner of the purple crystal? Suddenly, the man with long hair waved his hand, sending the spear flying. The spear constantly expanded in size while it traveled through the universe. It kept expanding and finally, it became an incredulous size. It could string up hundreds of stars. When the large spear landed beneath the man's feet, there was land, oceans, plants, animals, including fey beasts and humans growing on the spear. A spear had transformed into a narrow world strip? Yi Yun was alarmed. He did not know what sort of concept this was. The man had transformed his weapon into a world. The world expanded under the man's feet as Yi Yun felt like he had set foot on the narrow piece of land. In the hazy world, the clouds hung low. There was lightning flashing through the sky, as worldly laws seemed to transform into endless fragments. The world seemed to present its origins powers. These are nomological fragments. Yi Yun felt his heart skip a beat. He knew very well how valuable all these fragments were. These were laws of origins. The 12 Empyrean heavens had been formed for eons, and the universe had long taken form. The laws had evolved into a maturity. Could he gain insights of the origins from such complete laws? That would be impossible. This was also why many mighty figures from the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven had their eyes set on the primordial Empyrean heaven. After all, the laws in the primordial Empyrean heaven were not complete, making them easier to grasp. However, the primordial Empyrean heaven's laws were chaotic and trivial. It was easier said than done to search for the laws of the origins from such complex laws. No one knew if a fragment of the laws of origins could be obtained, even after an unmeasurable amount of meditation. But now, in front of Iyun, there were fragmentary laws of origins flying everywhere. Such fragments were easy to absorb. Even supremacies from the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven would probably go crazy when they saw such a scene. I want to meditate. These nomological fragments made Iyun covet them. However, he could only see them but not touch them. These laws were too far from him. He could barely see some of what was in there, but the immense pressure that this world emitted made it hard for him to maintain his calm. He could not meditate over them. Iyun felt his heart bleed for all the fragmentary laws of origins. It was equivalent to receiving nothing after entering a treasure mountain. Who was this spear-wielding man in the phantom image? What was his relationship with the purple crystal? This person felt more terrifying than the Pyryang Sword Palace's owner. Boom! At this moment, it sounded like there were countless thunder booming in the spear-wielding man's body. The fragmentary laws of origins in the sky began to flow into the man's body. A series of runic patterns condensed around his body. The runic patterns shimmered and there was a phantom image in every runic pattern. They were either gods or demons. Some of the phantom images looked dignified, with lotuses beneath them and a hazy halo behind them. Some of the phantom images looked ferocious, with blood-stained weapons in hand, as they stepped on countless bloody skulls. The phantom images were arranged in a circle, and together with the runic patterns, they eventually formed a circular wheel. 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence. For some unknown reason, this name appeared in Iyun's mind. The man with long hair held the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence that sealed gods and demons while standing in front of him. Iyun took in all of the laws in the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence. Iyun suddenly understood that the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence was most likely a frightening divine mystical art. And what he witnessed was the scene of the spear-wielding man's formation of a world and his creation of the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence. It was most likely an imagery relic of the purple crystal. This man was indeed a former owner of the purple crystal. Iyun looked up into the sky. There were still remnant fragmentary laws of origins. However, Iyun no longer wanted to look at the fragments anymore. He tried hard to widen his eyes as he tried to look at the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence clearly. However, the pressure that the man emanated was too powerful. As Iyun resisted the pressure, he attempted to study the laws, but he felt that his own will was on the brink of collapse. He tried his best to memorize and comprehend, but his mental energy quickly reached its limit. Boom! The spiritual world suddenly shattered as everything in front of him vanished. The scene suddenly changed. Iyun had abruptly returned to the primordial space. His surroundings were still pervaded with the gases of chaos, and in front of him, the three Fey God stones were still suspended in the void. Iyun felt a coldness across his forehead. It was dense beads of sweat that oozed off his forehead. It was astounding. Iyun never knew that there were such memories left behind in the purple crystal. And furthermore, it might not be limited to these memories. However, Iyun's mental strength was limited. He could only see up to this point before not being able to persist on. Iyun knew without thinking that the purple crystal had existed for an extremely long period of time. What about the images that were recorded within? Now, Iyun had only seen a tiny glimpse of them. Just the fragmentary laws of origins that formed into the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence were enough to thrill Iyun. What if he could grasp a tinge of the charm of the 10,000 Demon Wheel of Existence through repeated observations? How high would his strength increase? Senior brother, are you all right? At this moment, a sweet voice echoed in Iyun's ears. Iyun followed the source of the sound and he realized it was his neighbor. It came from the blue-haired young lady who was meditating in front of the 27th Fey God Stone. She was younger than him. "I'm fine." Yi Yun waved his hand. He was extremely excited. Although there was still a dull pain in his soul, Yi Yun could not care about the expenditure of his mental energy after catching a glimpse of the endless treasures sealed in the purple crystal. All he wanted to do was recover his mental energy before entering the purple crystal again to meditate over the laws of origins and master the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. Translator's note: no, it's not Lin Ming. Chapter 894, 2 years. Everyone was cultivating in the primordial space, so silence pervaded it. After swallowing a relic to recover his mental energy, Yi Yun began to regulate his breathing to process the relic. Lan Xiaomo looked strangely at Yi Yun. Why did he look so eager at such a barren rock? She really could not understand him. She knew that Yi Yun must have drained too much mental energy before. It was reasonable. With such a large Fey God stone, with no obvious point of insertion, it was certain that one's mental energy would drain extremely quickly while meditating with it. Lan Xiaomo stopped pondering about the matter as she continued meditating with the 27th Fey God stone. Although it was a bull-sized Fey God stone, it was still extremely arduous mediating with it. Lan Xiaomo found the laws that were contained within numerous and profound, but the insights she gained were limited. She felt vexed from having to choose the worst Fey God stone previously, but thinking about it now, it was not necessarily a good thing. The most difficult stones, the penetrating star rock and 3 God seal, were probably only things that absolute geniuses like Jianzhu or Princess White Fox could gain any insights from. Of course, what was more difficult than the 3 God seal and the penetrating star rock was the 3 special Fey God stones beside her. During this time, she had discovered that Yi Yun had immersed himself in the Fey God Stone once again. Without the consideration of him being able to gain any insights, just his mental energy consumption was extremely high and rapid. Previously, when Yi Yun had learned the Shadow Twins' footwork, Princess White Fox had also praised him. But why did such a talented person choose to break his head over these crappy stones? Yi Yun was completely immersed in the purple crystal. He felt as though a door to a brand new world had opened in front of him. The long-haired man stood there with the 10,000 demon wheel of existence in hand. It was the amalgamation of countless fragmentary laws of origins. Yi Yun had never expected to see chaos stones that had the purple crystal's auric charm sealed within them in the Luo clan's trials. Yi Yun had gone from an inconspicuous tiny world, a tiny cloud wilderness, to the 10,000 Fey Empyrean heaven one step at a time. The further he walked, the tinier he felt. Against the vast cosmos, the lives of people were like ants. It was like how bacteria did not know what it meant for the first and last day of the month, or how mole crickets did not know the seasons. What was a mortal's life to the universe? Yi Yun did not want to remain like a speck of dust in the universe. He was determined to pursue a high level of martial arts, and now, with the path towards a more magnificent world under his feet, how could he waste time? Yi Yun gritted his teeth as he desperately withstood the pressure from the long-haired man. He seemed to proceed along a road filled with thorns where his mental energy was constantly stabbed by the thorns. As he endured the pain coming from his soul sea, he went through great effort to move forward. Here, he could not rely on the purple crystal, nor could he rely on anything else. He could only persist on with his will. Boom! Just as Yi Yun discerned a tiny contour of the 10,000 demon wheel of existence, he was sent back to the primordial space as his mental energy was completely drained. There's progress. As long as there's progress. Yi Yun was not daunted. Swallowing another relic, he began to recuperate once again. For the long-haired man to reach such a stage, he must have undergone an extremely long period of cultivation, with immense fated luck and perseverance to be able to gain insights of the laws of the 10,000 demon wheel of existence, so how could it be easy? As his mental energy being drained again and again, and with him meditating to recuperate again and again, Yi Yun's soul sea was like a reservoir that was constantly being drained and refilled. Lan Xiaoma, who was beside Yi Yun, witnessed the entire process of Iyun meditating in front of the Fey God Stone. From her point of view, Iyun seemed to fall into a trance. He was huffing and puffing, with cold sweat pouring down his face, but he looked extremely eager. "Is this senior brother fine?" Lan Xiaomo gave Iyun a worried glance. Others were meditating in silence, but why was Iyun undergoing so many changes, as though he was fighting a war? Lan Xiaomo shook her head. She could not be bothered any longer because her time in the primordial space was up. Even the weakest Fey God Stone had a full schedule. Hence, she needed to rotate the usage of it with 2 other people. She had already agreed with the other 2 to have a meditation time of a month each. With her having to leave the primordial space soon, Lan Xiaomo gave the Fey God Stone a reluctant glance before walking towards the teleportation nexus. The passage of time was unfathomable. The void orchid was growing. It went from sprouting to producing a bud before blooming into a flower. 1 year's time had passed. Iyun gave up on sleep and food. He had lost count of the number of attempts that he made. The soul-nurturing relics that he used to restore his mental energy were quickly used up. He later used world stones to exchange with others, and he eventually bought some from the Luo Divine Hall's treasury. But by now, the rate at which Iyun consumed soul-nurturing relics had decreased because his mental energy had become extremely rich and immense. The long-haired man in the purple crystal had a monstrous aura. Under the impact of such an aura, Iyun's mental energy became more coagulated as well. He felt that his mental energy was improving, so even when he was expelled from the Fey God Stone, he would immediately recover his mental energy and enter the world again. From the point of struggling to his limits to be able to see a contour of the 10,000 demon wheel of existence, Iyun had slowly managed to discern the complicated runic patterns on the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. He was slowly closing the gap between him and the long-haired man. He was even able to discern the entire process of the long-haired man conjuring the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. There was no sense of time in enlightenment, but Iyun knew that he was constantly proceeding forward. And in his mental world, Iyun had finally reached a distance of 30 feet from the long-haired man. At 30 feet, every single additional step was extremely difficult. The powerful impact that came from the laws of origins were like surging waves that assaulted Iyun's soul sea. However, such impacts made Iyun feel extremely excited. This was truly an opportunity that one could not ask for. The runic patterns of the 10,000 demon wheel of existence became clearer. Iyun felt like he was beginning to come into contact with the boundary of being able to gain insights from it. Bam! The mental world instantly shattered as Iyun opened his eyes once again. He looked at the void flower. The second flower was halfway through blooming. In a blink of an eye, nearly 2 years had passed. At this moment, Lan Xiaomo had happened to awake from her meditation. She was accustomed to Iyun, who was attempting to gain insights constantly. Lan Xiaomo believed that Iyun would soon give up, but to her surprise, he persisted on for 2 years. Lan Xiaomo was an animated and lively girl by nature. She could not stand loneliness, so, in this silent primordial space, she would observe the scenes of the disciples around her cultivating. She noticed that Iyun's meditative state with the Fey Godstone was slowly becoming longer. He would only be in meditation for less than an hour in the beginning, but now, he could continue in meditation for 10 days. To be able to face a stone of unknown value for 10 days at a go for 2 years, it was unimaginable. At this moment, Iyun took a deep breath as he closed his eyes while regulating his breathing. It's about to begin again. Lan Xiaomo shook her head. For the past 2 years, she had never seen Iyun speak. It was as though he was a dead corpse just sitting there. The others would leave the primordial space so as to confirm their comprehension outside. It also included Lan Xiaomo herself. Her month-long meditation was almost over. She too needed to go into the deeper depths of the landmass so as to combine meditation and actual combat, despite the amount she managed to understand being very little. It was universally accepted that by combining meditation and actual combat, one's progress was the fastest. As for Yi Yun, he did not verify his comprehension. Was he not afraid of gaining a wrong understanding? Furthermore, his combat power would not increase as a result. Chapter 895, Condensing the Wheel. Yi Yun sat in front of the purple crystal Fei God stone cross-legged, and he entered an ethereal state. His consciousness was fully immersed in the purple crystal's world. He was oblivious to everything going on around him. With 2 years of hard work, he was already standing inside the treasure vault. It was a brand new world at less than 30 feet from the long-haired man. This was a world that the long-haired man had grasped, the nomological world of the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. While standing less than 30 feet away, the nomological fragments around Yi Yun shimmered. This experience was too precious. Yi Yun focused attentively as he seized the opportunity to comprehend the laws floating around him. Within 30 feet, he could see the runic patterns on the 10,000 demon wheel of existence very clearly. The nomological fragments also appeared within his reach, but they also depleted his mental energy very quickly. Although Yi Yun had a greater mental energy capacity than before, it would just take him a few days before he was expelled from the mental world. Yi Yun repeated this process day after day. He did not find it boring at all. He could see new nomological fragments every day. The long-haired man's repeated creation of the world and the process of producing the 10,000 demon wheel of existence was something that Yi Yun watched over and over again. Slowly, Yi Yun went from being a bystander to being a participant. He felt as though he had become one of the nomological fragments. It was like he would condense into runic patterns with the rest to form the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. As days passed, Yi Yun felt as though he had transcended the 10,000 demon wheel of existence and become the long-haired man. His consciousness overlapped the long-haired man and he began following the long-haired man in his producing of the world that had transformed from a sphere, as well as the process of condensing the laws. At the moment that the 10,000 demon wheel of existence was condensed, countless illusions of demons and gods appeared as they assaulted Yi Yun's mental sea. In a trance, Yi Yun saw war break out throughout the 12 Empyrean heavens. The Luo clan was destroyed by the Fei Phantasm sect and he was unable to find Lin Xintong to the very end of his life. Finally, he died filled with regrets. Mental demon. Yi Yun exhaled. After he began to truly grasp the 10,000 demon wheel of existence from the long-haired man, it also brought mental demons with it. Just after having this thought, Yi Yun saw himself still in the cloud wilderness in a blink of an eye. He had become the leader of a tribal clan, living together with Jiang Shiro in an ordinary but rich life. He led his tribesmen in hunts and after returning, he would see Jiang Shiro's warm smile as well as the blissful expressions of her gently dabbing the sweat off his face. Yi Yun was slightly stunned as he shook his head. Another mental demon. The martial path that he had taken had a long series of footsteps that existed in reality. It was not something that a mere mental demon could wipe away. Illusions constantly appeared as the demonic voices constantly whispered in Yi Yun's ears, but Yi Yun focused on gathering the nomological fragments. A runic pattern was formed, but there were countless other runic patterns. Days passed and the void flower quietly produced a bud before it silently bloomed into a flower. 6 years had passed and it was time for Lan Xiaoma to return to the primordial space once again. At the beginning, she would take note of Yi Yun, but slowly, she began ignoring him. Over the 6 years, he did not say a word, like he was a stone statue. And with the passage of time, she felt that Yi Yun's expression began to resemble a stone. Even his aura was the same. She glanced at the Fei Godstone in front of Yi Yun before looking back at Yi Yun. That's right, it was exactly identical to the Fei God Stone. 2 stone blocks. Lan Xiaoma had such a thought. In fact, Lan Xiaoma did not realize that the reason why she made such an association was because Yi Yun had begun to possess an aura from primordial times, just like the Fei God Stone. Just as Lan Xiaoma was about to begin meditating in front of the Fei God Stone, she heard some White Fox Clan's disciples talking within the primordial space. Upon focusing on the conversation, Lan Xiaoma froze. The White Fox Clan's third prince, Baiyu Qing, was coming here. This news surprised Lan Xiaoma. She had previously heard that Baiyu Qing had accompanied the young elites of the White Fox Clan at the White Fox Clan trials. After all, Princess Luo Hor was currently in the White Fox Clan trials. Lan Xiaoma believed that Baiyu Qing would stay with the White Fox Clan trials till it ended, and she never expected him to come to the Luo clan. However, the two clans' training grounds were both in the primordial Empyrean heaven. It was not difficult if one had an advanced spirit cruiser to travel from one clan's training ground to another either. Just thinking of Baiyu Qing coming made Lan Xiaoma somewhat nervous. It was obviously not because she liked the third prince. He was a noble and perfect person, so as a little fox with an impure bloodline, she was not worthy of liking him. Lan Xiaoma was somewhat reverent of the third prince, and she was also apprehensive towards him. After all, he was the future heir to the White Fox Clan's throne. Is His Highness coming here to understand the situation with Princess Schwer's trial? I heard that His Highness had previously made a bet with Princess Purple Spirit, so he is probably mindful of the outcome. He would pay attention to Princess Schwer, the Shadow Twins, senior brother Wufeng's progress, and maybe the Luo clan's Jianzhu. If not, His Highness would not make a special trip here. There's no hope for me. His Highness probably can't even be bothered to pay any attention to me. Lan Xiaoma's tiny head stooped downwards. As she glanced at Yun beside her, she suddenly felt like they were in the same boat. A few days later, the clear chime of bells echoed in the sky above the Luo Divine Hall. Following that, countless spatial ripples appeared as the space was immediately torn apart. From within, a gigantic arc slowly appeared. This arc was completely white as jade. The runes that lingered around it emanated a magnificent aura. Its bow had an extremely exquisite golden bell. It shook gently in the wind, and every shake immediately produced a chime that echoed throughout the sky. And the chimes tore apart the space in front of it. The chaotic laws around it were also forcefully calmed by the chimes. It was the celestial sound arc, the mount of the Empress Dowager of the White Fox Clan. Only such a spirit cruiser could shuttle through the primordial Empyrean heaven. On the bow stood a line of people. A man and woman stood right in front, while there were White Fox Clan beauties standing behind them in an identical fashion. Their figures and height were exactly the same at a glance. Such a bevy of girls would attract attention anywhere, but in front of the man and woman, they paled in comparison. The man was extremely handsome. He wore a fox fur robe as his white hair drooped down to the ground. His slender eyes seemed to be smiling. As for the woman, her beauty was peerless. Her skin was as white as snow, and there was a red dot in her glabella. She had an extremely sexy bearing. Third Prince. Seeing the people from the White Fox Clan arrive, Elder Duanmu and Elder Shi stepped forward and greeted them lightly. There was not much of an expression on the two elders' dry and cold faces. The two elders were focused on their cultivation and they were uninterested in the political intrigue. Elders, you have worked hard. The third prince said with a beaming smile. At the same time, he gave a junior's greeting. He knew that Elder Duanmu and Elder Shi had a slight chance to improve in their lives to become supremacies. Although the likelihood was low, the statuses of these two elders would be very different if they managed to take that step. Chapter 896, Losing Control of the Situation. For your highness to make the long trip here, it's presumably because you are concerned about Princess Schwer and the young disciples of the White Fox Clan, as well as their results. Elder Duanmu said lightly. Despite the fact that the two elders remaining reclusive in the primordial Empyrean heaven, they had some information of the bet between the White Fox Clan's third prince and Princess Purple Spirit. Seeing the third prince, Baiyu Qing, come to the Luo Divine Hall, the elders obviously knew what his intentions were. He was probably feeling uneasy and he was here to check on their results. Elder Duanmu, you sure enjoy joking. The third prince chuckled in a bid to liven the atmosphere. However, when he saw Elder Duanmu and Elder Shi's stiff faces, the words that he was about to say were abruptly swallowed back. He felt that whatever he wanted to say would be meaningless. He didn't know how many millennia the two old fogies had lived. They were stuck at the threshold of becoming a supremacy, and they had odd personalities. With them being reclusive in the primordial empyrean heaven, they probably had not joked for more than 100,000 years. Bai Yueqing found such people, who only dedicated their lives to martial arts, rather boring. How is Princess Purple Spirit? While walking towards the Luo Divine Hall, Elder Shi started a rare conversation. Princess Purple Spirit is doing very good. This prince had long heard of Princess Purple Spirit's amazing talent, and it was truly amazing in person. With such a rich ancient Fey bloodline, it is no way inferior to the richness of Xuer's White Fox bloodline. Other than bloodline, Princess Purple Spirit's perception and qualifications were all perfect. Bai Yueqing waved his jaded fan and he pretended to say those words in a relaxed fashion. However, as he spoke, his expression did not look too good. The muscles around his mouth appeared to be twitching. Back then, Bai Yueqing believed that he would be happier the more Luo Hua revealed her talent. The blood lineage that he would get from a marriage alliance would be better as a result, and it would also affirm his suitability for the throne. However, it later turned out that Luo Hua's performance was too good, to the point of it being heaven-defying. It made Bai Yueqing unable to sit still. With Luo Hua's personality, she could not withhold herself, even during the White Fox clan's trials. She practically turned it upside down. For instance, the nomological ladder to heaven. The Luo clan disciples struggled to climb upwards. Each level was extremely arduous. But for Luo Hua, she was vivaciously bouncing upwards on the nomological ladder to heaven without even stopping. One of the best geniuses left behind in the White Fox clan to hold the ground suffered such a setback from Luo Hua that he did not even dare show his face. Luo Hua's talent was just too high, making the third prince helpless at suppressing her. With that, how was he able to convince the arrogant Luo Hua? If he could not, what was there to talk about marriage? Seeing that he was losing control of the situation, the third prince made a special trip to the Luo Divine Hall to witness Xuer's progress. Princess Purple Spirit's talent is indeed astonishing. Elder Shi did not pay attention to the third prince's expression as he nodded his head in satisfaction. He had seen Luo Hua when she was young. Although he and Elder Duanmu did not participate in the struggle for the throne, as elders of the Luo clan, they still had some affection for the talented girl in the royal family. The third prince gave a wry smile, but he needed to respond regardless of how reluctant he was. Back then, he had sounded definite during the agreement on the bet, but now, from the looks of it, victory seemed rather uncertain. Where is Xuer? Is she in the middle of a trial? Bai Yueqing asked out of concern. Xuer was of greatest importance. She's currently meditating over laws in the primordial space. In a few days, the disciples in the primordial space will switch. Third prince, you will be able to enter during that period. Elder Duanmu said. The third prince smiled and he began waiting. Time was ephemeral in cultivation. When the door to the primordial space was reopened, the disciples that had to switch opened their eyes. Reluctantly, they walked towards the entrance. The amount of insight that I gained this time is so little. I wonder if I have reached a bottleneck. Sigh. Lan Xiaomao looked up and scrunched up her face. She held her tiny head as though she was having a headache. She glanced at Yi Yun and noticed that he was still motionless like a rock. It was unknown if he ever woke up in the middle. I wonder if the third prince is already here. Just as Lan Xiaomao headed to the entrance, she exclaimed, Your Highness. She noticed a man and woman walking towards the primordial space's entrance. The silver-haired handsome man dressed in fox fur was looking at the primordial space. It's indeed not bad. Meditating here will gain you double the results with half the effort. By seizing this opportunity, the effects would be better than cultivating outside for 50 or even 100 years. Bai Yueqing said praisingly. The White Fox clan has a similar training ground as well. Elder Duanmu said. My White Fox clan has the nomological ladder to heaven, so it is different to your esteemed clan's primordial space. They each have their different characteristics. Bai Yueqing said modestly. The nomological ladder to heaven was a long ladder formation built by dozens of Fey God stones. It was situated in the void, having different characteristics but similar purposes as the primordial space. Just like the Luo clan, the White Fox clan's resources would be allocated based on strength. Without a doubt, Luo Huo had taken the bulk of it. And here, Princess Shuer had also taken the bulk of it. From this point of view, neither side truly suffered. Both sides were using the most stringent methods to pick the best talents before nurturing them with the best resources. As such, the gap between top talents and weaklings would only magnify. Princess Shuer is over there. She is currently meditating with the three-god seal. Elder Duanmu said. Bai Yueqing saw Princess White Fox through the nebulous fog. At this moment, she was standing there motionless. Her beautiful figure seemed to be frozen. However, everyone who managed to kill the first ancient Fey in the Fey refining rock array had doubled the meditation time. Hence, it was still not time for Princess White Fox to switch. Shuer is currently in meditation, so there's no need to disturb her. This prince will just wait here. Bai Yueqing said indifferently. Go ahead then, third prince. Elder Duanmu said nonchalantly. As Bai Yueqing stood there, he naturally became the focus of attention. Many members of the White Fox clan were in no rush to leave the primordial space as they stepped forward to bow to him. Bai Yueqing revealed a gentle smile as he would occasionally give them words of encouragement so that the White Fox clan disciples would leave with a smile. Lan Xiaoma saw this from afar. Although she worshipped the third prince, she did not dare go up to speak to him. She lowered her head and prepared to train outside. In that case, the person to be noted in the Luo clan is Jianzhu. Bai Yueqing nodded as he looked at the youth named Jianzhu standing in front of the penetrating star rock. Bai Yueqing was listening to the Shadow Twins' description of the situation regarding the Luo clan disciples. That's right. After Jianzhu, it's Luo Mo and Yi Yun. Nonyue suddenly said, they had previously each killed an ancient Fey. Yi Yun barely did it, and you can call it an internecine assault. Internecine assault? Then that's just average. Bai Yueqing shook his fan gently. Chapter 897, Epiphany. Bai Yueqing did not pay too much attention to a trivial person like Yi Yun. However, once Yi Yun was mentioned, Bai Yueqing could not help but recall the snide comments that Yi Yun had made in front of Luo Huo. Furthermore, Luo Huo had even used Yi Yun as part of the bet. If the White Fox clan were to lose at the trials, Yi Yun had to accompany Shuer to tour the Luo clan, but Yi Yun had unexpectedly refused. Upon thinking about this, Bai Yueqing frowned slightly. He asked in a displeased manner, "How's Yi Yun? Tell me about him." His perception is not bad, but it unknown what he's thinking to choose special Fey God stones. Nonyue explained the situation with Yi Yun choosing the purple crystal Fey God stone. That Yi Yun is still quite a smart person. By choosing that Fey God stone, it would not look too bad when he loses, even if he were to not gain any insights from it. A White Fox clan disciple standing beside Nonyue said. Bai Yueqing did not say a word. From the way that Yi Yun shared a good relationship with Luo Huo, as well as the information that he obtained about Yi Yun, Bai Yueqing could sense that Yi Yun was a person who took an unorthodox path. He was a human from a lower realm with all sorts of ideas that were unpalatable. Although Bai Yueqing did not believe that the White Fox clan disciple said was true, there were only two reasons for Yi Yun to choose the special Fey God stones. Either his mind was not right or it was due to his arrogance. Regardless of which one it was a foolish choice. Nonyue blinked her eyes as Nonying had a ruminative look on her face. Smart? Look too bad when he loses? The nomological insights gained here would still belong to each individual, regardless of the results. If Yi-Yun had chosen the special Fey God Stone so as to not embarrass himself, his martial heart was probably way too insecure. How could a person, who had been slightly praised by Princess White Fox, be so superficial? At this moment, a girl timidly said, "I think Yi-Yun is truly gaining insights. He is in nearly constant meditation and he doesn't even move." Lan Xiaoma had heard the conversation just as she was about to leave. It was unknown where she got the courage as she suddenly spoke out. Lan Xiaoma subconsciously felt that she could not remain as resolute as Yi-Yun. Clearly, the disciple that mocked Yi-Yun could not do it as well. His denouncing of Yi-Yun's fortitude as a warrior was rather unpleasant to the ears. As that White Fox clan disciple, the Shadow Twins and the third prince were looking at her, Lan Xiaoma grabbed the corners of her clothes and felt her heartbeat accelerate. This was the first time that she had been looked at by so many pairs of eyes. And one of them was the third prince. Oh, it's junior sister Xiaoma. Right, weren't you sitting beside Yi-Yun? The White Fox clan disciple looked over. You said he was constantly in meditation, then what did he gain out of the meditation? Lan Xiaoma only knew that Yi-Yun was constantly in meditation, but she had no idea what he had gained from it. Ha! Bai Yueqing gave a careless laugh. He had already seen Yi-Yun in the depths of the thick nebulous fog. Indeed, as Lan Xiaoma said, Yi-Yun was sitting motionless like a statue. Seeing Yi-Yun's performance, the hint of displeasure in Bai Yueqing's heart vanished. It was unknown what Yi-Yun was thinking or was up to. He was working so hard meditating in front of a Fey God Stone that even the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Emperor in heaven were helpless against. Was he about to crack the mystery of the last three mighty Fey gods? Bai Yueqing gave a dismissive laugh as he continued conversing with the White Fox clan disciples. Bai Yueqing was very amiable and harmonious. In the White Fox clan, Princess Xuer had the most number of admirers, but his prestige was not much lower either. 10 days quickly passed with the passage of time. Bai Yueqing did not have any feelings of impatience. In another month, Princess Xuer's meditation would come to an end. But at this moment, 3 different auric charms suddenly emanated from the 3 God seal. They began spreading in all directions like a wave. The disciples in the primordial space glanced over in surprise. Oh! Her Highness is ending her meditation early? A White Fox clan disciple said. Bai Yueqing looked at the 3 God seal as well. A strange glint flashed in his slender eyes. This did not look like the end of a meditation session. Following that, the 3 auric charms emitted a hazy divine light that were of 3 different colors. The divine light was not expansive and it was even rather weak. But this hazy light was enough to make the hearts of people quiver. The 3 God seal contained the auric charms of 3 Fey gods. The 3 beams of hazy light hovered above Princess White Fox's head. They seemed to look down on her, with an indifference that came from a lofty attitude above all life. In front of the ancient aura, Princess White Fox looked like a delicate flower. This moment only lasted for a few seconds before the 3 beams of light slowly sank back into the 3 God seal and disappeared, as though nothing had happened. From beginning to end, they never gave Princess White Fox any laws or opportunities. But even so, this was enough to astonish everyone. They were ancient Fey gods. Even a drop of the vast auric charm was extremely terrifying. However, the auric charms had emanated out of the 3 God seal because of Princess White Fox had lasted for a few seconds. After the 3 auric charms sank back into the 3 God seal, a holy light burst out of Princess White Fox's body. She bathed in the resplendence of this holy light as her body floated up, as though there were lotus flowers blooming around her. Upon seeing this scene, all the disciples could not help but hold their breaths. At this moment, Princess White Fox was emitting a mysterious aura. A pair of snow-white fox ears grew above her head, as the phantom image of 9 large tails appeared behind her back. Nine-tailed heavenly fox. For such a phenomenon to happen, has Her Highness received an epiphany? Nonying was mesmerized seeing this as she said softly. She and Nonyue had unique talents in nomological perception. She felt that such a situation was the epiphany that warriors wanted, but it was something that came by not by searching for it. Schwer has indeed had an epiphany. The process of nomological insights is a process of constant accumulation. Just like how dripping water can pierce a rock, all the insights gained from before are in preparation for this moment of epiphany. That was the instant that the rock was pierced. Bai Yueqing recovered from his reverie as he revealed a satisfied smile. No, it was far more than a satisfied smile. It was pleasant surprise. He did not expect to witness Princess Schwer having an epiphany on his trip here. It appeared that even without his exertations, Princess Schwer's performance were still excellent. Having said so, not all accumulation can achieve that moment of epiphany. It requires top talent and great amounts of fated luck. Bai Yueqing was in a good mood. With Princess Schwer's epiphany, there was a tiny possibility that they could beat that arrogant Luo Huier. Now from the looks of it, Luo Huier might be talented, but her capricious nature was inferior to Schwer's calmness. Epiphany? Is it an epiphany because of the phenomenon? At this moment, a Luo clan disciple suddenly asked uncertainly. Bai Yueqing was giving a nonchalant speech when everyone was still reeling in shock, so he never expected to be interrupted. Phenomenon is just one of the marks of it. An epiphany is from within, so how can phenomena appear that easily? Bai Yueqing was slightly unhappy, but he continued explaining. His Highness is speaking, why are you shooting your mouth? A White Fox clan disciple knew how to read the situation and he immediately and bluntly called out the disciple who had previously spoken. How dare he interrupt their third prince's speech? All the Luo clan disciples looked at the White Fox clan disciple that had spoken with unpleasant feelings. Princess White Fox had received an epiphany. Although Princess White Fox had a sacred beauty that prevented others from looking away, she was still the princess of the White Fox clan, an opponent of theirs. By receiving an epiphany, the Luo clan disciples, including Jianzhu and the other geniuses, immediately seemed overshadowed. But at this moment, the Luo clan disciple said with a grievance, I wasn't trying to offend His Highness, but, it seems that on Yun's side, some phenomenon is happening. Chapter 898, Spirit Taking Form. Yun has produced a phenomenon? You must be seeing things. Do you think that phenomena are sold cheaply on the streets? It's obvious that Princess Schwer would produce one, but how can it be possible for Yun? The White Fox disciple, who previously reprimanded, said while turning towards where Yun was. Before he even finished saying his words, he was like a duck that had its neck pinched. The rest of his words were stuck in his throat. Yun was sitting there, with space around him distorted, as though countless Tao ripples were constantly emanating outwards. The disciple in question fell into a trance momentarily when he saw Yun. This trance only lasted for a few seconds, as he suddenly regained his state of mind, but his expression was that of shock. Just a while ago, his mind had been affected. This White Fox disciple hurriedly looked at Bai Yueqing and he noticed that Bai Yueqing was looking seriously at Yun. The White Fox disciple's heart skipped a beat and he wished that he could smack himself in the mouth. It was all his fault for being so talkative. Having seen Princess Schwer experience an epiphany, he had a sense of superiority over the Luo clan. He had intended to leave a good impression on the third prince, but his face was smacked just after saying a few words. It would probably be quite good if the third prince did not have negative feelings for him. Everyone looked at Yun, and quite a number of disciples were like this White Fox disciple. A fleeting vacant look flashed in their eyes before they recovered. Why were their minds affected? The twins, Nonying and Nonyue, were not affected, but they were astonished. Was this Yun's epiphany? He was meditating with the Fey God stones that had the auras of the 3 unknown Fey gods sealed within them. How was it possible to have an epiphany? They believed that Yi Yun had extremely high perception, but they refused to believe that Yi Yun was able to gain any insights from the three Fei God stones that even the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fei Emperor in heaven were helpless against. Junior disciples lacked the insight as to phenomena that occurred during meditation. However, it was definitely impressive to have a phenomenon. Among the Luo clan disciples, the Luo clan disciple that had been suppressed by the White Fox clan felt vindicated as he said, "It appears like phenomena are no big deal." Which White Fox brother was it that said that phenomena can only appear during Princess Schwer's meditation? That fellow. The Luo clan disciple's words made that White Fox disciple extremely unhappy. It really touched a tender spot. With the Luo clan disciple speaking, many people looked at Bai Yueching. Among everyone present, Bai Yueching had cultivated the longest. Be it his knowledge or cultivation level, they were on a completely different level to these young disciples. The disciples might not be able to judge what the phenomenon happening around Yi Yun was, but Bai Yueching could. It is indeed a phenomenon, but it might not be an epiphany. Bai Yueching said with a deep voice. At this moment, Wu Feng also spoke, "Your Highness is right. Yi Yun's phenomenon is different to Her Highness's." Nonying nodded as well and said, "Yes, the Princess Epiphany was inducing the auric charms of the Fei gods and the Three God Seal. It was a phenomenon from the Fei God Stone, but Yi Yun's phenomenon seems to have nothing to do with the Fei God Stone." With this said, the disciples realized that Yi Yun's phenomenon appeared to be induced from within his body. Space distorted with him being in the center. The ripples were also emanating out from his body, bursting in rings. And at Yi Yun's glabella, a silver mark slowly condensed. On a careful look, it was a silver sword. "This is..." Jian Zhu suddenly said in surprise. "That's Will taking form?" "That's right, as a result of his mental strength overly powerful, it has condensed into something tangible." Bai Yueching shook his fan as he said this. With this, he finally understood why Yi Yun was able to induce a phenomenon. Yi Yun's many years of meditating with the three Fei God stones that seal that unknown Fei gods have condensed his spiritual energy through the meditation process, regardless if he gained any insights. This allowed his spirit to condense into something tangible, inducing a metamorphosis and a phenomenon. The condensation of the spirit into something tangible is extremely rare amongst young warriors, but for warriors who have condensed a Dao fruit, it is rather common. However, for warriors who have condensed a Dao fruit, it would not necessarily allow them to produce powerful combat power, even if their spirit condenses into something tangible. Unless they specialize in being a warrior that cultivates mental laws, the effects would be average. Bai Yueching was very knowledgeable, so he said a few words to explain the reason behind the phenomenon that Yi Yun had produced. When everyone heard this, they suddenly saw the light. It was no wonder that they fell into a daze for a few seconds. It was because of the mutation of Yi Yun's spirit that affected their consciousness. "I heard your master is Supremacy Gulan?" This prince remembers that Supremacy Gulan is knowledgeable with laws that use mental energies as attacks. Bai Yueching said as he looked at Jian Zhu. "Yes." Jian Zhu said with a nod. "Yeah. Actually, spiritual energy attacks might not necessarily be very powerful. It's also easy to receive backlashes. Among the mighty figures of the 10,000 Fei Emperor in heaven, few use such techniques. This kind of spiritual energy mutation is useful for a warrior, but it is not that helpful. If it is to meditate over laws, a typical warrior's spiritual energy is sufficient." After Bai Yueching said this, the Luo clan disciples immediately revealed wistful looks. So it was just Yi Yun's spiritual energy condensing into something substantial, and not a phenomenon induced from the Fei God Stone. And from what Bai Yueching said, the spirit mutation was helpful to warriors, but unless one specially focused on laws that deal with spiritual energy attacks, its effects would be discounted. If Yi Yun had gained an epiphany, they would now feel ashamed in front of the White Fox clan. However, it was understandable on further thought. The Fey Godstone in front of Iyun was a Fey Godstone that mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Emperor in heaven could not grasp any insights from. How could Iyun perceive anything? It can't be said that Iyun's perception was greater than all those mighty figures, right? That junior sister from before is right. Iyun is indeed resilient. He is able to mediate using a Fey Godstone that leaves others helpless to the point of mutating his spiritual energy. Nonying said with some tones of admiration. Although he did not gain an epiphany with the Fey Godstone, being able to condense his spiritual energy during the meditation process, to the point of breaking through and making his spirit condense into something tangible, with his will as a sword. This also proved that he was extremely talented. Other than Princess White Fox, none of the other disciples present received any epiphanies or condensation of their mental energies into something substantial while meditating with their Fey Godstones. He truly has amazing perception. In the primordial space, his performance would be brilliant if Xuer wasn't here. Bai Yuqing said lightly. Upon hearing these words, many disciples shook their heads secretly. Princess White Fox's talent was too formidable that made them feel as though they had been left in the dust. This was not something that an ordinary genius could compare with. Although Iyun was excellent, Princess White Fox's performance was stunning. This made the halo around him immediately appear dimmer. Towards the matters that were happening around him, Iyun, who was immersed in his mental world, knew nothing about them. At a distance 20 feet from the long-haired man, Iyun was honorously enduring the immense pressure that came at him. Suddenly, he felt as though a membrane in his mental world cracked, producing the light cracking sound of a chicken egg being hatched. At this moment, Iyun took another step forward. This step was extremely heavy, as though Mtintai was pressing down on him. It was like wading through deep mud, taxing and impossible to pass. At the moment that Iyun's foot landed, countless fragments exploded with a boom. It was as though a shackle on his mental world had been released, as it constantly spread out. Oh! He had made a breakthrough in his spiritual energy? Iyun's spiritual energy was just a tiny pond, but after the repeated draining and refilling, this pond had finally expanded into a lake. Iyun was finding it tough to stand 20 feet from the long-haired man, but now, he felt his strength increase greatly. Not only could he take a step forward, his vision had also turned much clearer. The runes on the 10,000 demon wheel of existence appeared as though a mist had blown away from them, presenting itself clearly in front of Iyun. They were all nomological fragments. Iyun was pleasantly surprised. The sudden mutation in his spiritual energy allowed him to easily see all the nomological fragments. They were clearer than ever before. He began to study them with a ravishing appetite. This was a treasure mountain, and he finally walked into the treasure mountain at that very moment. Each nomological fragment was priceless, but there they were, free for him to choose. Iyun wanted to take all of them. He wanted to study all of the nomological fragments. After he made a breakthrough in his spiritual energy, Iyun's spiritual energy was now immense. He constantly memorized and he no longer needed to worry about exhausting his spiritual energy to the point of being expelled from the mental world. Iyun completely immersed himself in this tiny mental world. Every move of the long-haired man was perfectly reflected in Iyun's eyes. Chapter 899, End of the 7 Years. After Princess White Fox had entered an epiphanic state, a few months had quickly passed. During this period, the meditation time for Princess White Fox was up. However, Princess White Fox did not wake up. An epiphany was something that you chanced upon, so even though her time was up, no one disturbed her. The time that she spent could be made up later. About 7 months later, Princess White Fox finally awoke from her epiphany. Her body had a converged radiance as she exuded an indescribable aura. People found her more perfect than before. Her beautiful eyes were as deep as the night, with electric bolts constantly flashing around her. She gave people a deep sense of mystery. The White Fox clan was inordinately beautiful to begin with. Regardless if they were men or women, they possessed a special charm, but this charm could not be seen on Princess White Fox. There was no need for that charm because just her flawless beauty was enough to naturally attract the attention of others. Bayuaqing walked towards her with a smile. He asked, "Shuer, what's the outcome of your epiphany? How far have your nomological insights gone?" Princess White Fox responded with a smile, and this smile made countless disciples fall into a momentary daze. The result is still pretty good, but it needs a period of consolidation. Brother, you came here for me, probably because Princess Purple Spirit's results at the trials are outstanding? Princess White Fox did not directly answer him, but she responded with a question. Bayuaqing felt somewhat helpless. Princess White Fox always had such a character. She would not rush to a conclusion, unless the matter was certain. It was terrifying just thinking of her being in an epiphanic state for 7 months, but even so, she kept quiet about it. However, it was an epiphany in front of the three-god seal, a rare opportunity that happened in 10,000 years, so how bad could the insights gained be? However, Bayuaqing had a headache once Shuer mentioned Luo Huier. From news that came from the White Fox trials, Luo Huier's progress was divine. Even the elders that presided over the training grounds were impressed. This prince has indeed underestimated Princess Purple Spirit's talent. However, Shuer, you have given me a pleasant surprise. It appears the bet might not be lost. Bayuaqing said with a smile. After all, the bet between the two clans depended on the overall result. The bet is meaningless to me, but the trials here are very useful to me. I'll do my best. Princess White Fox said. Bayuaqing nodded. He knew Shuer might appear soft, but her heart was firm in her pursuit of martial arts. Then this prince is relieved. You do not have any opponents here. Supremacy Gulin's disciple is much weaker than you. Although Yiyun managed to mutate his spirit, making it take form, he is still not a threat to you. Bayuaqing said. Yiyun had a mutation in his spirit? Is that so? He actually managed to receive something. Princess White Fox looked at Yiyun with her beautiful eyes. His talent is not bad, but it is incomparable to yours. Bayuaqing lightly said. Regardless of how powerful Yiyun was, he was only the cream of the crop amongst ordinary geniuses. He was not someone who would catch his attention. However, why hasn't Yiyun woken up yet? Even Princess Shuer's epiphany had ended. It was unknown what Yiyun was gaining insight on. For him to meditate for so long over a mysterious Fey Godstone that mighty figures of the 10,000 Fey Empery in heaven failed to do so, had he gone down the wrong path? After Princess Shuer woke up, she left the primordial space, so Bayuaqing naturally did not stay in it any longer. There were few people who paid attention to Yiyun. During this period, only Lan Shema would look at Yiyun to see if he had woken up while meditating with her Fey Godstone. However, Yiyun was just like the Fey Godstone in front of him, having turned into a cold rock. The Void Orchid began to bloom, and when the 7th flower bloomed, the entire Void Orchid produced a strange glow. 7 years was like a tree ring to the Void Orchid. Elder Duanmu had set the time to be 7 years, which also happened to be the moment that the Void Orchid would enter a full bloom. On this day, after the Void Orchid emitted a strange glow, the primordial space's teleportation nexus gradually lit up. All the disciples woke up from their meditation. Sigh, I only grasped a tiny bit. A disciple looked at the Fey Godstone in front of him, being somewhat unwilling to leave it and being somewhat frustrated. Many people had the same reaction as him. With the constant rotation throughout the 7 years, the time allocated to them was too short. Although they had gained something, they felt that there were many unsatisfactory areas. Yiyun meditated for the longest. Who knows if he gained anything? A disciple looked at Yiyun. That's an unknown Fey Godstone, so how can it be easy? But even if he did not gain anything, his spirit has mutated, and he might be stronger than us. Another disciple said in envy. Inside the mental world. Over the past few years, Iyun was in constant meditation in the state of the long-haired man's consciousness overlapping, while conjuring the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. Each nomological fragment slowly condensed into a runic pattern. With countless runic patterns forming together, it became the 10,000 demon wheel of existence. When Iyun sketched out the final runic pattern, he gently placed his hands together. The runic patterns began to spin as though they were in a whirlpool, as they surrounded and enclosed him within. Numerous phantom images of gods and demons flashed. With a loud bang, the 10,000 demon wheel of existence appeared beneath Iyun's feet. Boom! 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 The long-haired man instantly collapsed after transforming into a purple beam of light. However, before the long-haired man disappeared, Iyun saw a fuzzy shadow in the deep depths of the mental world. The figure looked blurry, but he could vaguely tell that it was a woman. Her body was beautiful and her aura was ethereal. She looked like a goddess that came from ancient times. Her back was facing Iyun, with black hair cascading down her back. Iyun tried his best to discern anything, but failed. Instead, he felt a stab in his mental consciousness. This was the first time that Iyun encountered such a situation after his spirit mutated. What a terrifying aura! At this moment, the woman suddenly stretched out her slender hand. Following that, she quickly dabbed her fingers 9 times in the air. 9 ripples formed 9 flower petals. The 9 flower petals condensed together, turning into a tiny 9 transformations red lotus. This red lotus appeared to be lacking in power, but Iyun could sense terrifying nomological fluctuations from the red lotus. Out of the 3,000 great Tao, there were countless laws. However, laws too were ranked. The 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire and earth, were commonly seen laws. For example, the Luo clan was proficient in fire elemental laws. Sabers had nomological saber Tao, while swords had nomological sword Tao. Time was a law in itself as well. To be able to grasp any of these laws, not simply proficiency but total mastering of it, was an accomplishment in martial arts. And above these laws, there were laws of origins, like yin-yang, life-death and chaos, that were superior. These laws were almost equivalent to heavenly Tao. Typical warriors could not even understand them. To these warriors, these laws truly existed, but they were ephemeral and impossible to grasp, let alone master. However, Iyun sensed that this red lotus contained laws of origins. Who was this woman? Iyun found it unbelievable. The man's appearance and the purple crystal at the beginning had already astonished Iyun. His aura was terrifying to the point of it exceeding the pure Yang Sword Palace owners. But on further thought, this man must have been the former owner of the purple crystal, so Iyun could understand it. But following that, who was this black-haired woman? It appeared as though a long misty river of space and time separated him from her, preventing him from seeing clearly. The purple crystal was too mysterious, but how many more secrets did it have? However, at this moment, his mental world was shattered. Iyun opened his eyes and he realized he was back in the primordial space. At the moment that he opened his eyes, it was as though his eyes were like a kaleidoscope, with infinite runic patterns flashing through them. Senior brother Yi, you have awoken. Ah! Lan Xiaoma turned her head and she happened to see Iyun's eyes. Her eyes immediately glazed over, but she soon regained her consciousness. She hurriedly looked at Iyun's eyes again. It was now normal. Was that spirit energy? Every disciple already knew that Iyun's spirit had mutated. Purple crystal. Iyun took a deep look at the purple crystal Fade God stone in front of him before standing up. Iyun's long hair cascaded down from his back as the glint in his eyes remained converged. He was like a scion of the mortal world, with a bearing that seemed beyond elegant. Why do I feel like senior brother's aura has changed? Lan Xiaoma thought in her heart, but she subconsciously spoke as well. Iyun smiled and he did not respond. At this moment, Lan Xiaomo looked at the tiny Fei God stone in front of her. Thinking back to the time when she was repulsed by this Fei God stone, but after 7 years. I kind of miss you now. Boo-hoo. Lan Xiaomo felt as though she had feelings for the Fei God stone. Time is up. It's time to leave. Lan Xiaomo shook her head as she walked towards the teleportation nexus. Chapter 900, Battling Again. All the disciples returned to Astral Palace after 7 years. 7 years was just a fleeting moment to the Luo Divine Hall that stood on the floating landmass for billions of years. When the disciples returned to the Astral Palace, they began to feel that this place had a feeling of eternity. They were changing, but this place did not. It was a strange feeling. It was as though time had stopped in the primordial empyrean heaven after it failed to take form as a universe. When all of you first came to Astral Palace, other than a handful of people, the rest had average or even terrible results. In fact, amongst the handful of people, only one reached the standard of a genius. Elder Duanmu scanned the ground as he said suddenly. Upon hearing him say this, everyone looked at each other. Elder Duanmu did not specify who it was, but it was clear that he meant that Princess White Fox was the genius. Princess White Fox was indeed extraordinary, with no room for debate. But what about the Shadow Twins, Wufeng, Jianzhu, Luo Mo and Yi Yun? Were they considered average or slightly above average? Their results were much better than the rest, so wouldn't the rest be unbearable to watch? The Shadow Twins, Jianzhu and company frowned. There was a gap between themselves and Princess White Fox, but it was apparent from Elder Duanmu's statement that Princess White Fox had only reached the standard, but she was not one of the top geniuses. How high was this standard? Elder Duanmu gave a grim smile and said, "You do not need to be indignant. The performances that you had previously can only be considered passable in the Astral Palace's tens of millions of years of history. Let's see the fruits of your 7-year meditation." Princess White Fox's expression remained indifferent, but a hint of disappointment flashed in her beautiful eyes that looked like the starry night. She was not at the top. The aspiration to do better was sparked in the other disciples as a result of Elder Duanmu's words. They were geniuses from their own states where people stood in awe at them, but only at the Luo Divine Hall trials did they experience the difference. However, they never expected to be considered existences that failed to even rank and could only line the bottom. They went through 7 years of meditation and honing, without a day of slacking. How could they resign themselves to lining the bottom? Amongst the crowd, Ran Shui coldly looked at Yi Yun. He had managed to last 9 minutes previously, believing that the results were not bad, only to be informed that Yi Yun had engaged in an internecine struggle with the ancient Fei before coming out. He was clearly stronger than Yi Yun, but he had been relegated beneath Yi Yun. This made Ran Shui extremely upset. And in the primordial space, he had believed that Yi Yun was foolish, giving up the great opportunity to meditate with the 7-star rock and lit star to him. He believed that the gap between them would only expand, but he never expected that Yi Yun's spirit would mutate. However, Bai Yuqing had also said that the mutation of a spirit was very limited to the increase in strength. I belittled you during the trial from before. But back then, your strength did not truly exceed mine. This time, I will not give you an opportunity. I've meditated and validated repeatedly over the past 7 years. My strength has already greatly increased. I was stronger than you to begin with. At this trial, I will show my strength. Ran Shui was filled with fighting spirit. He could not wait to prove himself. Yi Yun looked at the Fei refining rock, as a hint of fighting spirit flashed in his eyes. He did not step out of the primordial space for 7 years, so he was eager to verify his meditation and results. Then let's begin. Elder Duanmu said, "We shall proceed according to the order of the last trial, from last to first." When Elder Duanmu said this, Bai Yuqing said while fanning himself, "Elder Duanmu, why don't we reverse the order? I believe that everyone wants to see the purest of battles. This prince is looking forward to the performance of the top geniuses from each clan. Bai Yuqing was most eager to see Princess White Fox's progress in strength. This was the greatest goal here. As for Jianzhu, Shadow Twins and company, he would just take a look in passing. As for the rest, he couldn't be bothered with them. Elder Duanmu pondered slightly before saying, "All right then, we shall begin from the front." When Elder Duanmu said this, all the young elites felt their hearts stir. They believed that people like Princess White Fox, Jianzhu and company would be at the end, but now, they had to start at the beginning? Bai Yuqing smiled and he looked at his younger sister. However, Princess White Fox did not say a word and just took a step forward. "My sister and I will go as well," Nong Yue said. Wu Fing did not say a word as he silently stood behind Princess White Fox. The White Fox clan's geniuses were assembled. In the primordial space, Princess White Fox's epiphany made everyone marvel her. In comparison, the most promising opponent of hers, Jianzhu of the Luo clan, had rather plain results. If the Luo clan were to lose terribly in the first round, the White Fox clan was bound to turn arrogant. Jianzhu. Elder Duanmu called out Jianzhu's name. Jianzhu appeared calm. His body was straight like a sword as he took a step forward without a word. However, everyone could sense the fighting spirit exuding from his body. The fighting spirit was constantly gathering, to the point of manifesting a black swirl of air that lingered around his bone sword. A disciple that was the closest to him was affected by this fighting spirit as sweat oozed from his forehead. Jianzhu has changed too. This aura is very powerful. He is preparing himself. When he unsheathes his sword, it is unknown how powerful he will be. Jianzhu has been silently gaining insights over the past 7 years. I'm curious to know how deep his comprehension is after staying for so long in the deep depths of the primordial space. A Luo clan disciple said. Jianzhu was Supremacy Gulan's disciple, so he did not lack in talent or diligence. His brilliance was only shrouded due to Princess White Fox and Yi Yun's phenomena. Elder Duanmu looked at Jianzhu and he nodded slightly. Indeed, Jianzhu did not disappoint him. Just his aura gave people the feeling that he had formed the heart of the sword. Luo Mo, Yi Yun, and Ran Shui. Elder Duanmu called out 3 names. It will be a clash right from the beginning. It's going to be stressful. Luo Mo said with a smile. It was good to be stressed. The journey of martial arts was to continue forging forward. This stress was all used as motivation to force one to continue progressing. Seeing the top disciples from each clan stand forward, the other disciples were filled with anticipation. Watch, Princess, and the rest will definitely win. A White Fox clan disciple proudly said. That might not be the case. A Luo clan disciple did not want to be outdone. They were all looking forward to Jianzhu's performance. At this moment, his aura was the strongest. Just looking at him would sting the eyes, as though they were being cut by blades. Clearly, the insights that Jianzhu gained in the primordial space was no trifling matter. The Fey refining rock could accommodate 20 people at a time. Other than these people, the White Fox clan and the Luo clan chose 6 other disciples each. 20 people stood in front of the massive Fey refining rock. Let us begin. As a light flashed across his eyes, the space where Yi Yun was instantly changed. It was a vast plain, just like it was 7 years ago. Choose the ancient Fey you want to battle. I choose the Rani fish. Yi Yun's choice was still the Rani fish. Back then, Yi Yun had suffered serious injuries in order to kill the Rani fish first. He wanted to know what the result would be in his rematch with the Rani fish.